Well, hello.
Hody, hody, hody. You know what? When I hear something terrifying that I found out,
What's that?
I actually found out irrefutable proof that our nation is indeed a white supremacist nation. Because since the Supreme Court did away with affirmative action a while back, MIT just released some stats on their admissions, and there's one specific race, one particular race that whose admissions went up by 7% after affirmative action, confirming that we are indeed a white supremacist nation. So if you had to guess, who do you think that race would be?
I can't guess.
Guess the racist?
Asians!
What?
Proves irrefutably that we are a white supremacist nation.
Again?
Again?
We are there.
275 years in a row.
Woo!
Dang it. We got a new resident male cheerleader. Asians are taking over, bro. And Mr. Croissant Boucher is the first like. Man, the racism stuff. I just got done listening to the Delins. And
I just saw a couple of things you posted about it. It's already so funny.
I am sometimes I'm kind of flabbergasted because I just watched today. Did you see some of that stuff happen with like that DEI, that new that she's like she's some member of Congress or something getting up there like chirping about DEI stuff and getting rid of DEI stuff. What was that?
Yeah, she was chewing them. I can't remember who it was. There's a lot of people chewing them. I think Al Sharpton was bitching about how Trump has 0 black people in his cabinet so far.
Yeah, well, some lady got up because they were talking about abolishing all DEI and something,
Mm-hmm.
and so she like got up and was bragging about it and stuff, and
It felt like that time that Joy Reid was talking about how awesome affirmative action was, and she says, "Without affirmative action, I probably wouldn't have been able to go to college." Like, yeah, that's the problem, you midwit.
That's what we're talking about. Reese was in Cambodia. Trump just picked a woman AG. We got a new longhouse. We got a longhouser running the DOJ, man. From Cambodia. Wow. Yeah, I wasn't even expecting it, but I just watched the lens and the racism and contemporary issues in Mormonism stuff. And it is getting to a point already. I mean, I guess the election was just the other week, and you can expect a huge relapse for everybody into the summer of love, I guess, at some point soon here. But there's some sort of thing where I think that Kendyism stuff already sounds 20 years old in my mind. I don't know what's going on in my brain. I just like hear people spout it without like any just straight spouting it in true belief, and I'm just like, really you guys are still gonna just go like all the way there? Because one of the things they were talking about in the episode is they had a guy on who was trying to make race segregated wards, and they were very, very upset that the church wasn't allowing them to make race segregated wards
because it goes against church policy.
Yeah,
church policy is we don't do racism.
You're able to have Latino words. You're able to have Tongan words. You're able to have, but those are languages. You're able to have Tagalog words. Like those are, it's for the language. It's not because of, it's not like race words. Like, what are you guys talking about? And the church is very, very racist because they're not allowing in that segregation, which has been, we don't want to use the word segregation. We don't use that word segregation because it sounds bad. We want to use something about race conscious. We want race conscious wards.
So I see on here you have on the docket that Jared is still worse than a grapist.
Yeah. Oh no, wait. You got upgraded to equal, didn't you?
I did. It was a little bit better.
Did you want to go into that?
I wanted to get that one out of the way first.
Out the way. Hold on a second, just real quick. I'm going to just to give everybody a warning. I'm going to try as often as I can to talk to Jared like John DeLynn and Matt Harris talk to a black guy on their panel throughout the entire night. Yes, Jared, please. It would be excellent to have your point of view on this. I'm so thrilled you're here to be with us and you're able to share your perspective.
What would
We
it do to
really
your
need to know
brain
what
if people?
non-binaries think about this. So
What
please
would,
let us know.
what would it do to your brain if people spoke to you like that all the time? Like just
Thank
everyone.
you, Jared. That is a good point. Yes. I'm very appreciative that you brought that up. I hadn't even considered it. I'm so happy you're here to bring up such things to my attention.
Jesus. Oh, so we had a new kid at work one time, and he's like a nice enough guy, but like he started. I think he thought I was like a boss or something because he started talking to me. I just want you to know I'm like really grateful for all that you've taught me in this. I think you really take time out of your day. And I don't know. It's fine to express appreciation to people or whatever, but it really felt like sucking up. And I'm sitting there in my mind, I was like, is this guy kissing my ass? Why would you kiss my ass? Like, it's not going to get you anywhere. I'm not a boss. and also, fuck you for thinking I'm such a little cuck that that would work on. How you got to be dumb for ass kissing to work on you. Fuck you for thinking I'm that dumb. Did you appreciate what I said there?
It still seems to work on some people. I value your perspective, and this is why I felt it was necessary to have you on, because we need these types of insights. And I'm very appreciative that you're able to bring to my attention things that I might have left in the dark, in the shadows of my brain, because I only have my experiences. Thank you, Jared.
Yes, quite. Kiss the ring, please.
So you're as great as it is to have you here on this panel, and I worship the ground you walk on. You're a grapist?
I am.
Or
I'm at
wait,
least as bad as
upgraded to equal to a grapist.
I used to be. Maven has bestowed me with. I've ranked up because I was worse than a rapist. Now I'm just.
This is a double-blind test too, because I don't know that she knew that she was upgrading you. She didn't know she was talking to you.
Yeah, she didn't know I was talking to me. I don't think so. That's not a Reddit account that I ever use. That's like the only comment I ever made on it.
I could tell it was you. You want to know why?
Why? How'd you know?
That racist 88 stuff on there. But I appreciate that you're here to bring that perspective to us, because I call it race conscious. It's race consciousness, and you're bringing this to our attention. It's much needed. It's 2024.
Did I tell you about when somebody saw that in my username? Like we were in an ex-Mormon group and we were posting usernames for something, and I posted mine and it had the 88 in there. And they're like, wow, that's a white supremacist dog whistle. I was like, what the fuck are you I was like, oh yeah, no, it's my birthday, August 8th, 88. I've done that since I was 10. And he's like,
you're
yeah, sure. What?
Because I have a friend who's 8888. She's double Nazi.
Oh, see, I'm 88, 1991.
Oh.
Reese does his reparations to Jared, please.
Luckily, my Venmo and Cash App are in every bio of every social media account that I have. So,
so what exactly were you saying to her?
Well, we were on the Utah subreddit, right?
Yeah.
And they were talking about. Let me find it. I'll just read it off. So
share the screen.
It was an article. Utah State University moves to join lawsuit against Mountain West Conference over trans inclusion in women's volleyball.
Oh.
And so she commented on it. Do you not?
Did she give you the little speech John Oliver told you that you could give to?
Holy shit! No, she did a really long thing. As a cis woman, transphobia hurts us as well. And I'm quite tired of our most prolific abusers, cis men, pretending to protect us from non-threats while committing the majority of violent crimes against us and supporting each other. Like, how do you... The ones that are saying don't let trans women play sports against real women are not the ones who are being violent toward you. Do you understand that? Like, I'm saying, no, don't let males play in female sports. I've also never done violence against a woman. So like, there are individuals, Maven. I care about my nieces and the women in my country more than you. Guaranteed. The people most likely to oppress, injure, rape, or kill them will look a lot like what you see when you look in the mirror. Really wish you'd leave saving us from trans athletes for after you rid us of child molesters, rapists, and abusive partners.
Oh my
Or
God.
really just not bother saving us from anything at all. Our trans sisters stand with and for us far more than you, and they face the same or worse violence and discrimination from cis men as the rest of us. So we don't actually need you at all. Your white knighting on Reddit is fucking useless anyway, okay? Stop pretending, just stop. We know we can't rely on you, and we're not even asking. Fuck off. So that was her.
So there we
rant.
have it, that she does say men are the enemy.
Yes.
Cis men specifically are her enemy. There you go.
So and I responded on, again, a Reddit account that I never ever use. Like I've never had a comment on there. I follow 0 subreddits, anything like that. So I'm as positive as I can that she doesn't know that it's me. I just said, do you not see a safety or fairness issue when males play high-level sports against females? And of course, she came right out of the gate. Do you not see a safety or fairness issue when males rape, abuse, or kill females? Well, maybe if you took your head out of your ass trying to look for non-issues and join the real world, you would. So I just said, I don't know what part of my comment makes you think I don't care about those things. Of course I do. Again, do you find it unfair if a male competes in high-level sports against a female? And I told her it was a deflection, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
Well, also,
I pointed
like,
out
there's
to
the
her,
whole thing that, like,
how are you extrapolating all this? Like,
being violent to women and raping them and stuff is against the law, and
I know
people can and do go to prison. Like, that's the thing is, like, the capital crimes are murder, treason, and rape. Those are the capital crimes.
Clip, treason is so rare. Like, why do you care?
Treason.
Treason happens 1 in a bazillion gajillion. Why do you care? Why should that be illegal?
that's a good defense for Trump on the January 6th shit.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
come on. Insurrections are so rare.
Insurrection happens once every 276 years.
Why don't
Why
you
do you
give
care
it-
about it?
Just give a shit about real things, okay?
It's fleetingly small, J.K. Rowling.
Oh my God. Okay. So, and this was the real rant where she went off on me, where she extrapolates from like the 2 things that I've said to her so far, and she knows nothing else about me. Yeah, because you aren't doing shit about the latter. How do you know? You're the one deflecting from real issues affecting half the population to make up an issue affecting none. Not true. I promise you more cis women are injured by other cis women in sports. It's sports, you idiot. Yes, more cis women are injured by cis women in sports because that's the ones that fucking play the sports. There's like 4 trans women that play sports and they all fucking dominate. Okay. Like statistics. It's like, I love those stupid statistics when somebody tries to surprise you, like, did you know that 90% of all shark attacks happen in shallow water? That's because it's where the fucking people are. People aren't in deep water that often. Okay. Okay, where was I? Let's see. How many trans female athletes are there in Utah? 4. How many women and children are abused and killed every year? How many trans women are being assaulted? Trans women are women. They are with us. We have the same enemy. Men like you. Men like you deflecting from your own hate and violence. Men like you perpetuating it, adding to it, ignoring it. Trans misogyny is misogyny. So yeah, you don't care about rape and femicide. I don't know how you know that. More than it takes you to type it out pretending. I don't know how you know that. Because it's more important for you to blame and victimize women you hate to pretend there's somehow more of a problem for us to face you. It's you. You're the problem. You're making it worse for all of us, not better. I'm asking you to be better, even though I know you won't.
I think I just saw last
Boom.
week or so, a woman in Ogden was arrested for sexually abusing minor children. So there we go. We got one for you, Maven.
Yeah,
You can go chase her down and call her.
I'd love to
cisgendered
see
man.
her. I'd love to see her do that, like on stream, because like then you'd have that cuck bitch RFM in the background, like, oh, Maven, mic drop. Like, what do you mean mic drop? She just said, because you think this, you're probably a rapist. Therefore, I hate you. Oh, she just told off the rapist.
It just reminds me of Cartman talking to Kyle about Jewish. Like, well, Kyle, because you come from a kind of people that believes in sneakiness, don't you understand? Like, your people don't have values like me. Like, she's literally doing the Kyle Nazi thing, or the Cartman Nazi thing. It was like, well, no, I'm going to explain your thoughts to you because I already know what they are, because my conspiracy theory has answered all my questions.
Well, we already
Like-
know that she can explain my thoughts because she explained them to me on stream here before. When I said, "Do you think maybe I could possibly be pro-life because I don't want to control women's bodies because I think you're killing a human?" And she's like,
And she said,
"I
no.
believe that you think, like, you say
That's
that,
right.
and you might even think that. Like, what would be the difference between me thinking that this is what I want versus me actually wanting that? Like,
Oh, I guess
I
she's
don't understand. Like, is it just does she think it's just subconscious thing? Like my my elephant is racist and my writer doesn't know that?
Mm.
RFM
She
starts
doesn't
talking.
She still doesn't know that's you, right?
I don't think so.
Uh-oh.
I don't know how she would.
Hmm. That thing about it's so few, it's so rare, it's so few. It's so funny to see the way they're just kind of doubling down on it. They haven't learned the lessons, even though.
Oh
I mean, I
yeah, no.
guess-
Like, well, that's another one where I always bring up when they say, "Oh, well, that barely happens." Okay, what's the number where it becomes a problem? Like, okay, let's go with your thing. Oh, well, that barely happens. Fine. You tell me, when will you officially say, okay, that's too much? And of course,
Yeah, well, it's also
people-
more relation. She's making it relational too. She's talking about how it's basically this thing has a higher number than this thing, so we got to worry about this thing first, which means that there's a thing above that thing that happens a lot more
Yeah.
than that thing. Like, I don't know, probably male deaths. Like, men die violently more often. So I'm sorry, you don't care about men dying violently. And until you worry about men dying violently, you can't tell me anything about women dying violently because it happens to us more. Therefore, your thing doesn't matter. Also, it's impossible for you to care about both at once.
It's kinda
Oh,
tied
mic
to-
drop!
I was
Ooh!
gonna kind of make the joke already, but if you want, just to get out of the way, do you have the Flips Booze Corner?
Oh, I don't. Actually, I could pull it up on the other thing.
It's not
'cause
important because
I
today
didn't
I
have time to make
extremely-
a thing. But hold on, I'll do
Today
it.
is an extremely special booze day. And so to set the stage, it's dawn, and it's in the palm groves of Sri Lanka. And because the patriarchy hasn't gotten there yet, it's predominantly young boys and men who have the extremely dangerous, low-paying job of called toddy tappers. And what they do is they get up real early and they climb to the tops of palm trees where they harvest the sap from unopened coconut flowers, which is collected, fermented, distilled, and aged like a whiskey, and it's called arak. And a customer, like in January, I had a customer who showed me a Sri Lankan passport. And offhandedly, I'm like, hey, man, if you're ever in the old country, bring me back a bottle. And last week, on my last day there, he's like, hey, were you the guy asking about arak? I've been looking for you since April. I brought you a bottle, and here it is. And it's really remarkable. It's a 74% proof, or 74 proof. It's 78 proof, yeah, 34% alcohol. It's outrageously smooth, but it mostly, like, it's very whiskey-like because of the booze. But I was gonna say, like, the patriarchy hasn't gotten to Sri Lanka because they haven't got the girls doing the extremely dangerous job of climbing up the palm trees every morning to collect the harvest. So, like, I think it's part of Project 2025, actually, that the men will stay home and eat the coconuts while they make the girls climb the fucking trees for money. But yeah, this stuff is quite amazing. It's outrageously smooth. It's not like you get a huge blast of coconut off of it. It's mostly the wood, but man, I'm so glad this guy did that for me. But that's what you get for being outgoing. Some guy brings you back a bottle of arak from Sri Lanka. And boy, it's
Awesome.
good.
How was the last day?
It was really good. I got a card The coworkers made me a card. In fact, my Russian coworker wrote the whole note in Russian, and so
Wow.
I got to figure that out. Not sure what she said.
She professed her
no,
love.
Like one of my customers took my photo and was like, "Can we be friends?" And like she came to Sunday Preckers last week.
Oh, that's cool.
But like I don't know, I'm really sad, but I got to do what I got to do for my own career.
Yeah.
But
You already
no,
started the new one.
no, that's the thing that sucks is I have this whole week off because they pushed back my start date, so I just lost a week of productivity. So instead, I kind of did like house cleaning. But there we go. I knocked out the booze corn. I wanted to get that out of the way so I could sip on this.
Well, delicious. That John Oliver one. I have the clip of it, but the only one I have is a small one of Crowder covering it.
Just a
And it's
smack
like-
of coconut.
It's small.
Dude, that bit was so bad. The whole thing, the John Oliver thing where he talks about trans sports.
Oh yeah.
Like, and he flat out even says, and there's no evidence that it's more unfair or unsafe with trans women there. I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely unfair. Like that's obvious thing. Unsafe, like, well, yeah.
Discussed before, there are vanishingly few trans girls competing in high schools anywhere. Even if there were more, trans kids, like all kids, vary in athletic ability. And there's no evidence.
So you're talking about this in high school, and we don't have the figures on that completely, but as of 2024, you have about 900 medals globally from 600 female athletes. If you look at international sports, you see records set by biological males in sports like weightlifting, running, swimming, cycling. Take your pick. If a biological male has competed in it against females, they've harmed them.
So I guess some people pointed out, I mean, J.K. Rowling pointed all that stuff out to him, which I don't know if she did first before Crowder boasted out all that same stuff.
She did it like right away, and her response was pretty brilliant.
This is a reverse.
Well, no, like, yeah, there's actually numbers like she showed. Like, was it like 900 girls missed out on medals to transgender athletes? Like, okay, well, is 900 enough, Maven? If 900 girls got raped this year, is that a concern? Yes. If 900 girls didn't get a fucking scholarship opportunity because of this shit, oh well, I guess I'm. What does she say?
Well, it would be a concern about the 900 girls not getting the scholarships, but unfortunately, there was 902 girls that got killed. So. We got to worry about the higher number first, and then once we bring that down to absolute zero, then we can move on to the next thing.
The madness.
Nirvana fallacy, where there aren't that many people, so if we try it with more of it, right? Well, probably, who's to say that it'll go poorly? Well, you know what? We tried it with a few people, and at this point, we're 900, as I just gave you the number. References available at louderwithcrowder.com. It seems like it's going pretty poorly. Let's go to the next point.
Pose any threat to safety or fairness. It is very weird for you to be so focused on this subject. And finally, if you genuinely want to address the big
safety or fairness, there may be no effect on safety or fairness, and it's weird that you're making this into a big issue. Well, the reason that we're making it into a big issue is because the fact that over 900 medals have been stripped from women, or sorry, I should say stolen from women. We gave you the number 600, and injuries, fairness.
One of the things that's wild about this, I don't know if it was on the front of this clip. I think this clip maybe started too late, but
how long ago was this clip?
It's this week, some point. I mean, I think his show Sunday night, so it came out, and that's why everybody was jumping on it and doubling down on it. But I wish I could find the original one. I probably have the original one, but what he starts it out with is, how did we screw this election up so badly? How did we screw this up so badly? All we needed to do was to describe the trans issue this way. and he proceeded to just say the stuff that just drove everybody up a wall and was absolutely the reason why people hated the issue. And he presents it like, all you had to do was just say this, and then everybody would have got it because it's just correct. Like it just, the way that he starts it that way is just so unbelievable that he thinks, well, you just didn't get it. You just didn't hear it explained this way yet. And then all the people on Twitter going, yes, John Oliver, thank you. Like, where? What?
Men worrying about trans issues is like a squirrel riding a chihuahua into battle. I love your tenacity, Scribbles, but it's not gonna happen.
Cut to a squirrel in the audience.
For crying out loud, you're talking about hundreds, if not thousands. Again, it's hard because a lot of these numbers aren't being reported as part of a politically motivated agenda. Also, it's being made an issue because you are the guys who reversed policy, made it an issue. Let me give you a few examples. Here's a Massachusetts girl basketball team. They had to forfeit after many injuries from opposing trans players. There was the Australian female soccer player who actually had her leg broken from going up against a team with 5 trans players. Of course, you have Fallon Fox, the MMA fighter, who fractured the skull of a female opponent. And not to be outdone by any of these, there's this famous clip where volleyball player Peyton McNabb was partially paralyzed on the right side of her body after this spiked ball. Guess John Oliver doesn't care about that person while they try to virtue signal. Let's just wrap up and play the rest of his clip as though he has anything valid to say.
He's concerned for most girls who play high school sports. You'd be less worried about this and more about the creepy assistant volleyball coach who keeps liking their posts on Instagram.
No, I agree with you.
That's basically like what you got from Maven, right? There's.
Yep. Well, and just to say that the people who care about this trans thing don't also hate the creepy guy that's creeping on girls.
Yeah, no, it's just weird things. Like you are either totally on board with transgender stuff, or you are a psychopathic Nazi that just wants everybody to suffer and die. Like in her world, those are the options. The people can be divided in those groups. They're righteous, caring people like her, and then literally everybody else could care less if people die or anything. Like it's how Nazis think.
Yeah.
Why doesn't anybody why doesn't everybody do this with their pet issue? Right? Like if you were at like a soup kitchen or something, do you get shit from the people who donate clothes or something like that? Like there's a big beef between the two. Like, oh, you think people need clothes, huh? Why don't you feed them? Huh? You don't even fucking care if they eat, do you? You're just knitting them clothes and bringing it to them, and well, you don't even care if people have clothes. You just feed them.
Do you even have insulin or insulin pumps? Do you even care about diabetics? You're making clothes for people when some people can't even process sugar.
Well, the thing is, it seems to mirror to me.
Like this.
Oh, I know.
It seems to mirror to me like a lot of times when people would bring up to feminists that they'd be like parading around protesting in the U.S. or at some university or some place where they said, you're protesting the professors at Berkeley. You are protesting the most feminine-oriented, like feminist-oriented people in the history of the world, and that's where you're protesting. Why don't you go protest Islam? And then they would say, we don't have to focus on all the bigger problems in the world to fix the problems in my own house or something like that. Like they had all their excuses on why they could ignore the big thing to focus on the little thing, like just the same as anybody, you know. Back.
Absolutely should do away with child sex predators. We absolutely should vilify and stigmatize minor attracted persons. Your term, not ours. And really, we should fight to preserve the kind of American culture that you denigrate as flyover country while you live in Hollywood, the one place where rape culture actually exists and many people attended Pedophile Island. Have I made myself clear? No discernible advantages? Aside from the hormonal profile, bone density, red blood cell count, hemoglobin, lung capacity, wingspan, overall leverages, strength, explosivity, reaction time, fast twitch muscle fibers. It's just amazing. The party of science.
Yeah. Listen, I really hope they keep this playbook for next time. Please, guys, you know what? You're right. You just didn't try hard enough on the trans issue. Please bring it back out for the midterms.
Right.
Like, let's see how that goes for you.
It's like a woman who has to get the last word in while acting like they're not. Like, you're the one turning this into an issue. Right? Maybe if you cared about, but the fact is it hasn't caused any problems and there are no biological advantages. Wait, hold on a second. No. You were walking out, parting shot. You're still making an issue because you can't not. I get that's a double negative, but it makes perfect sense. You have to make it an issue because of your voting base.
Well, his solution to Kamala addressing the issue was for Kamala to tell the rest of the country, you're wrong.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I'm right, you're wrong, you're dumb.
Vote for me.
You're dumb.
It wasn't never going to work.
You're wrong. It's not a problem. And I get that he doesn't come from Liverpool, but it's funnier to do it that way.
It's close.
It's like the burglar telling you his gun is not a problem.
Right. Well,
it's in my back. I think it is.
Well, he comes from the country where you actually go to jail if you scare a burglar with a fake gun because you're the one committing the crime. It's beyond repair.
Burglars have rights too, Stephen. Come on.
Yeah.
He said we should be more focused on.
What's this classic?
So this one was, man, this was way back. I think in like 2015 or something like that. This is Hannah Mounsey,
I remember.
a handball player in Australia. I don't know if you can tell. I'm going to quiz you guys on something. Believe it or not, there is a woman in that picture who is transgender.
Look at the short hair. It's got to be short hair.
I want to know if you can guess.
Dark short hair back there.
Yeah, see, you're wrong. It's the tall, hulking one with a jawline that could cut diamond.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
No, it's that's the one on the left with the man bun. They call that hairdo
man bun, Jared.
Nope, you guys are wrong.
Man bun.
You guys are wrong. See, you can't tell. You can't. They walk among you, and you can't. You probably had crushes on trans women before and just couldn't tell.
No,
anyway,
all trans men because I'm not attracted to any of them, so they must all be men.
Oh, anyway, this is the proof that I offered John
I
Oliver.
don't have the slightest inkling to sexually assault a single person in that picture, so I can't possibly be the woman in there.
There's no studies to suggest that there's any athletic advantage. That's because we didn't think we had to fucking do them. Are you kidding me? Like, we already knew. This is my proof to you. This picture. Look at it. Tell me which one of those you think could win in anything.
Jared, this is why I appreciate having you on the panel to share with us these deep insights about the many different, about the whole spectrum of what a male and a female could be. And it challenges my assumptions. And I'm really happy you're here to help with this. If we really wanted to worry about who was actually going after the little kitties, we would be going after Matt Gaetz. Haven't you known that person went after all the little kitties, and that's the only Epstein person ever? Actually, all of Trump's cabinet is the entire Epstein people.
Yeah.
But no, you hypocrites don't even see that, do you?
I saw somebody, I think it was MSNBC, they were complaining about how, like, usually when they pick cabinet members, they pick them from already established politicians. Like,
what?
Yeah, I mean, is that a good thing? wait a minute, you're saying, like, if he would have picked Mitch McConnell, I would have respected it.
Yeah, they always claim that sort of thing. Like, if they would have at least done this, like, no, you'd be hemorrhaging out your ears one way or the other, no matter who they picked. But I just heard and read that the only reason Matt Gaetz, they didn't push him through is because the GOP people said that they didn't have the votes for him. It's not because he's saying that there's actually some sort of thing out there.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they did.
But there's Venmo payments. Don't look at my Venmo. There's payments, and they may or may not have to do with furniture. Venmo payments, man. So I guess all the
fuck! I hope I'm never a congressman, because like all of my Venmo payments are like, they just say like prostitution or that ass.
I actually do have some of those where I screwed with my friend. I said something like that to him for naughty sex, thank you, or something like that. Dang it, man. I guess I'll never be a politician, I guess. But what else going on out there? You guys follow any Mormon stuff this week?
No.
We've been talking so much politics lately. I feel bad because it's been election-y time, you know.
I know. I started listening to something. Which one was I listening to? It was stupid. That's all you need to know.
That narrows it down to Delenn. No, I'm just kidding.
Pretty sure it was Delenn.
It looks like right now Ward Radio is going over the top tier ex-Mormon arguments.
Top tier?
Yeah, they got a tier list.
That's
Carter's gonna be like, well, I mean, as far as anti-Mormon stuff, I guess the Kinderhook places are the best they got. You know what I'm saying? But I would put it in F tier.
What are the best arguments against the Book of Mormon tier list? Do you think they'll put any on like the S tier? Did any of them make the S tier?
I mean, I feel like the best ones are like that. It just clearly didn't happen. I mean, I don't know.
Like, that is the top of the list. It's like, well, there's no such thing as magic.
Yeah, I mean, there's no metal here. There's no like. They get excited when we find horses that instead of being 80,000 years ago was 65,000 years ago, but we still got another 60,000 years to go before it's even near the time.
Hey, look at this. Colch is going live too right now, stream sniping us.
I saw that.
Mackenzie Vance. And Zelf on the Shelf just dropped Secret Lives of Mormons at the Y. But we can get into John DeLynn being a
cuck.
Why does 2020 racism, like Kendyism stuff, feel so long ago to me now? It's like even most of the universities have figured out to get past that stuff and to not go around pushing the segregation for anti-racism's sake. And these guys are sitting there pushing segregation for anti-racism's sake.
Oh, Troy's talking. That's the one I started watching, the Michelle Stone and Bennett conversation.
Oh, I watched that. I did watch that.
I
But
didn't
that's straight up politics too.
I know. I got partway through it and I stopped listening and I just commented like, look, I don't often sing Michelle Stone's praises, but like, Jesus, dude, imagine getting just stomped in a debate by Michelle Stone. I would never show my face online again. Joseph Smith didn't do polygamy, lady, kicked your ass. And
I think he just gassed out. Like he just like, if you're not on my side, I'm exhausted. I don't have time for this.
You such a bad person.
Trumpers. He keeps calling them Trumpers. Like that's such like a boomery way to call Trumpers, like the Trumpers. Did you watch that one, Flip, at all?
No.
You know how many times I've heard Jim Bennett say, like, I don't want to get political here, but Trumpers don't live in reality.
Yeah.
What? You don't want to get that's not political. That is political. That's exactly political, you fucking idiot.
I don't want to get political. It's just that Republicans are literally Nazis. So I'm not going to be political about it.
It's just factual. Okay, that's all it is. I'm just being factual.
Oh, here it is.
It's amazing how much of that's coming up in the freaking lobster group. There's a lot of people, like just somebody pushing up's like, well, how do you explain all the Nazi rallies? Like,
oh my God, they keep saying
there's been one. Like there was one. Like there was Charlottesville way back when, and then they just had another one, and the whole thing, like the only reason it was news was that people were asking the mayor, like, why did you allow this group to get a permit and legally demonstrate peacefully? Like, what's the matter with you? And he's like trying to explain, like, well,
they're a group
in America. You're allowed to assemble, and just they're just so fucking.
Do you remember?
They're constantly agitating. Well, just like I said, they're agitating for racial segregation. They're agitating against principles of liberal democracy. Like everything they do is just so anti-liberal.
All while quoting MLK.
Yeah. Actually, color blindness is a form of white supremacy.
It was one of the times I got swarmed on like Feminist Mormon Housewives or something was the week after Charlottesville. Do you remember there was like another politician who was having a rally who had nothing to do with that? It was in like Boston.
Oh,
yeah. It was like a libertarian. He had nothing to do with it whatsoever, but they'd gotten so spooked that like the whole world showed up at that thing again. And I think the person was even Indian American,
Yeah.
and they all showed up for it. and with all their signs ready for a fight and all that sorts of stuff. And the guy had just was nothing to do with Charlottesville. And that's where I got on saying, this is not that. This is nothing to do with that. This is nothing to do with that. And I got swarmed all over.
Don't you know how dangerous America is right now?
Oh, what did they used to say at that time? Like, read the room. Read the room. What about tone? Something about tone, like not tone policing, but they'd say something about like you're tone deaf. You're tone deaf. You're tone deaf. Like tone deaf was like their phrase for you're correct, but you're not supposed to be correct about this. That was their phrase. You're being tone deaf right now. Read the room.
Oh, man.
So the room is like you guys have your pitchforks, and I'm supposed to read the room.
I don't know. He might even be listening. I don't know. But our friend, that Brecker's friend, our bus driving friend, I was at Brecker's, and like I was talking about the whole thing where Deloy Hansen, who was the gajillionaire owner of Rail Salt Lake, and he got forced out because of Black Lives Matter, Me Too shit, and it was all completely fucking bogus. And like Eric's defense was like, well, he should have known better than to say that. Where it's like, okay, that's victim blaming. He shouldn't have stood up to the racist conspiracy theory mob. Like, oh, he should have known better than to defend his interests and values and money and club in the face of the fucking racist conspiracy theorists. Like, and it's just that. It was like, oh, just that. It was like, oh, tone, man, tone. Like, no, what he said was absolutely correct. The team was fucking retarded because they refused to play because of what's his name? The guy who got shot in the back while reaching for the knife when he was being arrested for violating.
What
you
was
know
that
what I'm talking about?
That one was in.
Jacob
That was
Blake.
the Kenosha one, wasn't it?
Jacob Blake, yeah.
Jacob Blake.
Yeah. The team refused to play because a convicted somebody who already had convictions for domestic abuse was violating an active protective warrant and reaching for a weapon got shot by cops.
And was kidnapping a kid.
And was kidnapping a kid. And the team's like, well, we're not going to play because of this injustice. And Deloy Hansen went on the air and said, like, I feel betrayed. And then because of that, the fucking mob forced him out. And because of that, we lost the women's soccer team for 2 years, ironically, because he was the guy who brought it in.
It was such hysteria. It was such moral panic. We lived through the moral panic of moral panics.
Oh, dude.
And just today, DeLynn and Matt Harris, I'm just a scholar, guys. I'm just a scholar. Even though every single one of your scholarly positions is really just a political position. You hardly do any just neutral explanation.
Yeah, could you name me a scholarly position that you hold that wouldn't be held by all of the hosts of MSNBC?
But it was such like a crazy moral panic. And just today, those two guys were going on and on about how the church paid lip service to people who wanted to say that those protests weren't just peaceful. They said that just today on the new DeLynn crap. They're still going on and on that the protests were mostly peaceful, and how dare the church pay any lip service to not being down for revolution and stuff like that.
Oh God, that Jacob Blake thing is insane to me. That's what brought about the whole Rittenhouse thing, the Kenosha riots, all that shit was a fucking sexual assaulter. Kidnapping a kid, trying to attack the cops, and getting shot. Not even killed, but shot. Yeah. And we burned down cities and businesses over that.
My favorite part of that was so many of people, like when I talked to them, like there'd be so many times like because they just got the MSNBC news were like unarmed black man shot in the back.
Didn't he was alive.
And then I'd be like, that's things like, and I ran into some like an old guy I really like too. I respect him a lot, but he just said the stupidest thing where it's like, I'm like, well, he was a convict who was violating a protective order for a woman he was already convicted of assaulting, and he was reaching for a gun. And he's like, well, I just don't think you shoot a man in the back. Like,
yeah, wait for him to turn around and point the gun at you. Obviously.
No, I had a friend who's like usually pretty up on this. He's like pretty much where I am politically. When we talked about Rittenhouse last time, I was like, that was so black and white, a case of self-defense. And he's like, well, he did disobey gun laws. And I was like, no, he didn't. No, he didn't disobey a single gun law. He owned a rifle legally.
Oh, the crossing the line.
Yeah, it wasn't a short barrel rifle, so therefore he was legally allowed to have it. And he's like, well, he did cross state lines with it. No, he didn't. The gun stayed in Minnesota. He didn't, or is that Wisconsin? Yeah, Minnesota or whatever.
They tried to say like, oh, it wasn't.
And then he's like, well, he crossed. Yeah, he crossed state lines. He didn't.
It's like literally going.
No, I know. I'm telling him that. He's like, well, he went to a state that he didn't even live in. He's like, it's like me going from here to Rigby. He went 15 minutes to go to the city where he worked.
Where no, his best friend lived there. His stepdad lives there. His job was there. Like, no, he had all kinds of investment in that community.
Well, he probably shouldn't have been there. It's like, I don't know, maybe like his mom shouldn't have brought him there. Yeah, that's probably fair to say. Like his mom shouldn't have brought him there with a gun, or no, I don't know if she knew he had a gun, but
yeah, that's kind of things. Like, yeah, like if we're going to talk about the should-haves, well, there shouldn't have been a race riot going on, and the race riots should not have gotten.
No, that was
of the Democratic Party. That shouldn't have
today.
happened.
John DeLynn and company said that you're racist for describing it that way. Flip, gosh.
Again,
you still to this day, people are just like with a straight face declaring that if you noticed anything like that, you're just some right-wing extremist and a racist and and they're doubling down into all of it. But I'm just a scholar saying this. I'm just a scholar informing you of that. That's all I'm telling you. I think when Jim Bennett was talking to her, actually I have a Freedom tune. Did you see Freedom tunes today?
No, I meant.
Here you go. Watch this one.
Have you ever heard the story of the subway strangler?
Oh, you mean the white supremacist who killed people on the subway? I thought the media covered that story up.
What are you guys talking about? His name was Daniel Penny. Imagine, it's a dark and stormy night. You're riding the subway, going about your business, screaming at other passengers about how you'll kill them all, and you aren't afraid to go back to jail. Oh.
That's normal. That's just what you do.
I'm gonna murder everybody you! I'm gonna kill you! That's just what you do. But the strangler isn't there! What if he is there?
I can't imagine that.
Oh, Jordan Neely didn't have to imagine it. Legend has it that after his 44th arrest, and after kidnapping a child and beating up an old lady on the subway on separate occasions, while he was innocently screaming threats at other passengers, the subway strangler showed up and put him in a chokehold to bring him down to the ground to get him to stop threatening all the other people in the subway. So just know, if you're an unhinged subway rider who's kidnapped children, beat up old ladies, has 44 prior arrests, and is currently threatening everyone around you with death, you might be next! I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you! I'm gonna murder everyone too! I'm gonna kill all of you! It's just part of being in the woods! I'm gonna kill you!
It's just part of being in the woods.
It's that Emma Vigeland rant about how like sometimes you just get punched in the face on the subway. I'm excited for the Daniel Penny one because we're not near as fucked up on this shit as we were when the Rittenhouse thing happened. And the Rittenhouse thing, like, man, I watched that autistically. And when they read the verdict, I actually felt like emotional. It was a fucking roller coaster. But this one would be cool because you couldn't pick a more Chad-looking guy than Daniel Penny. He's got just a harsh jawline and he's buff.
And he didn't even kill him. Like they said, supposedly the guy's still breathing by the time he's done.
Yeah,
Well, they said that they said he was still breathing and had a pulse when paramedics were working on him.
But
do you remember on this subject? Remember, there was the cop that shot this, I think, 16, 17-year-old girl while she was running toward the other girl with the knife. And
I forgot about that one.
And who was the lady on TV who was like, "We got in knife fights all the time"?
Sounds like Maxine Waters.
It really was. It really was like, oh, come on, black girls in knife fights? That's old. Come on, girls will have knife fights.
Boys will be or wait, no, that's wrong.
If that Jacob Blake dude had died, do you think that police officer, he'd probably be in prison right now? Just the difference of like living or not living is
that wouldn't be a lot harder than the Derek Chauvin case. Because
you think?
I'm saying, like, for a jury, like, I think he is about as likely to get convicted as Kyle Rittenhouse was. And it was nail biting with Kyle Rittenhouse. I thought he would at least get charged with something. I was shocked when he was.
You think Daniel Petty's going to get off? He's in New York.
I think
he's going up against Alvin Bragg.
I think Daniel Penny's going to get off.
It's hard. It depends on how jury selection goes. Because that's the other thing is, like, I mean, one thing I hope, like, if one good thing could come out of another Trump presidency, Derek Chauvin, all of those guys need at least a commutation. If not a pardon, a commutation. But really, they should just get a pardon. Those cases were fucking bullshit. And then a couple.
I mean, I could see somebody like giving. I think it was bullshit, and even like what Flip. I think you brought it up last week of like how bullshit it was that they didn't like call a mistrial for like just all the jurors and the threats that were happening.
Yeah, just all the threats, like the giant mob outside saying, "If we don't get our way, you all know what's going to happen, right?" Right.
I could see an honest jury landing on some manslaughter thing. I could see an honest jury landing on no, we don't think this was that. I could see an honest jury, but like what he's got life or something like that right now, doesn't he? He's got like murder.
Yeah.
Something. It's unbelievable, like the actual one that they were given to him. But it's just the same thing that happened with the lawfare of Alex Jones. The Alex Jones stuff, I mean, it's speech and all that stuff, and they're claiming like defamation, and they had some sort of negative thing happen to them supposedly. And I haven't looked into it all, but I guess Alex Jones is finally countersuing him. But you could see them just kind of being like, okay, Alex Jones, pay these guys out $1 million or $2 million or something like that. But $1 billion and
now that's insane.
You know, $1 billion, yeah. No, and also because, like, again, like, if spreading conspiratorial lies is $1.5 billion fine,
watch out, feminists.
Yeah, Maven.
Yeah.
Men
Put
are
away.
the enemy? Really?
Delete your period tracker. JD Vance is coming.
So they talk about there's so many people over Twitter right now.
They're just so hysterical about that shit. Oh, did you guys see? I posted a clip. I think. Did you guys send it to me though? I think you guys sent it. It's that shirtless Christian guy who's just like, yeah, I just, life was hard for me. I had a single mom, and then all these
we'll pull it up. We'll pull it up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll show it.
They're just like screaming at him, and he's
like,
just
saying, like, this man has blood on his hands.
Gosh, he's worse than the grapist, and they're the freedom fighter heroes. Just so many of these things that happen, even going to court. The deal is like the Daniel Penny thing shouldn't have even really gone to court.
No.
But what brings so many of these things about are that these different DAs got put in by Soros and Soros money. Stuff that people couldn't even mention for some years or get kicked off. I don't know if they still have that one as one of the ones that you'll get kicked off of YouTube for. For a while, you could not talk about Soros or you would get demonetized on YouTube or something like that. And everybody's freaking out all over Twitter because Trump put billionaires in the office. But the left side's had the Soros money and the Open Foundation's money for forever. And they are for sure the ones that fund those DAs getting put in. Well, Scott Adams said that he thinks like a big moment is happening just this morning because we saw Elon Musk say I want to speak with Alex Soros because I want to understand what his motivations and goals are for this. And Alex Soros said, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. And he is the kid of George Soros, and he's taking over the Open Foundation stuff and the money. But Scott Adams says maybe something right there will get to the bottom of like, what the hell are you guys doing? I mean, Scott Adams says we don't know why they're doing it, but everybody kind of knows, if like the history of George Soros is that he made his billions off of causing like this type of stuff in different countries. Like he knew how to invest against it, and so
he was a exchange rate stuff.
Yeah. He knew how to invest and short against this stuff. So he knew how to go cause it and invest against it to make his money. But is it just money or is it actually ideological? But Scott Adams is hopeful that maybe that conversation will get to the bottom. They'll say, tell me why you are doing this. Like, why? Why are you doing it? And in California, one of the Soros DAs just got, what do they call it when they rescind them? She got voted back out of the office and got recalled or whatever in California. Yeah. With over 65 or something % of the vote in a blue state.
Trump like that and saying
in this conversation right here, I think Jim Bennett was like all with it. And even though ostensibly he doesn't agree with her takes on polygamy and all that sorts of stuff, but you just see a total demeanor change in him when he finds out that she voted Trump.
It was hilarious because it's like he brought it up. He brought it up as if he knew for sure she didn't vote Trump. Like,
yeah. And he's deflated like this and just deflated the whole rest of the time because he didn't realize he was talking to a dirty, nasty, naughty Trumper. Even though he talks about like you can reconcile with anybody on the internet and talk to them. It turns out people are just nice. And that's him talking about the ex-Mormons he gets along with. But he can't get along with Trumpers in any way. So the fact that he goes around trying to present himself as some sort of reconciliatory person when he cannot get along at all with the people he's ideologically opposed to in any way. Like I promise you, Jim Bennett, like in the regular world and talking to people and all that stuff, I have strong opinions on here and I'll say them on here, but out in the regular world, people can say whatever crazy thing and they'll hardly know anything about what I think about their bullshit unless they're trying to push some sort of rule or law or something on me. But if they're just out spouting their mouth, I'll probably just generally keep the peace with them.
Are you talking about the philosophy of leave me alone?
Yeah.
I hear 25 Trump is a Nazi comments a day.
Yeah.
Just, or just something like, oh, well, if we got, or, don't put away your period trackers, ladies. Like, I hear that stuff all day. Just, okay,
A couple of guys in my band do not like Trump. All their wives for sure don't like Trump. I get along with all of them swimmingly, but they're also not as bigoted as you are, Jim Bennett. Yes, bigotry. Back to Flip, who used to point to everybody the true definition of bigotry before the dictionary changed it. And Flip used to get kicked off of web pages all the time for pointing it out.
Yeah.
But
bigotry is intolerance of people who have different opinions. That's
it.
That's it.
Except now it's different.
Well, you forgot about the power dynamics definition.
Bigotry's power plus privilege. Thank you, Jared. Jared, thank you for being here on the panel to point to us.
This is okay, but here's the thing I'm sick of is that you guys have me here as your token and like I'm doing all this fucking emotional labor like it's nothing. Like do the work, okay? Google this shit. Or compensate me for all of my emotional labor. You shouldn't expect a minority like me to just come here and educate you.
Yeah. What are your rates? Like if we wanted,
are we going to show that?
I don't think we can show that from Jonathan. But
what are my rates? What are my rates? Okay, here's the thing. Again, do the work and don't ask me to educate you. These are all in my bios. It's in my Twitter bio. My Blue Sky bio. It's right next to my Venmo, Cash App, and all my
if I paid you $750, you're not going to explain to me the paradox of tolerance from Popper, are you? I mean, that's got to be what's the price of somebody explaining to me the the meme image that is all they've ever read. Of,
You mean for somebody to say literally this to you? Well, the paradox of tolerance is a philosophy put forward by Karl Popper, who claimed that sometimes tolerance is good, but then the more insane people get, the more violently tolerant, the violent they get. You can't be tolerant of violence. Therefore,
no, it's not violence; it's ideas. Oh wait, you're talking like what Karl Popper actually said.
Yeah. My bad. Well, ideas can be violence. So you mean for somebody to say exactly that to you? I think the going rate would be like 50 cents.
Ideas of violence.
If you haven't had this posted to you 10,000 times, it happened more around Trump's first term. It would happen all the time, and now it's back. It's funny, like how like old memes kind of like recycle back up like this, because like, why wasn't it useful during your Biden thing? Like, it seems like you still should have been on about it. But I saw 1,000,001 people post this image. 2000. What was Trump's first years? 2016 to 20, and then it was just gone from 2020. Like the paradox of tolerance was gone from 2020 to 2024, and now it's back. And
you gotta put up Leslie's comment.
Hold on a second. Well, this is wanting me to subscribe to continue reading Skeptic. This is from Skeptic.
No way. It is.
She wanted me to subscribe to her thing to continue reading. Her having posted somebody else's. What do they call this? Like a
classic. You know who that is, right, Jared?
No,
that's Rebecca Watson.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
She's the elevator gate lady that did the new atheism movement.
Oh,
so
man.
I just almost had to pay elevator gate lady to read the Karl Popper meme how much would it cost? How much would it cost to subscribe for a thing? Anyway, that was coming up because Jonathan asked somebody to go into depth about, somebody said, have you not read The Paradox of Tolerance? And Jonathan said, tell me more about it. And they said, how much? Or how did they describe it? The old,
how much are you willing to compensate me for?
How much are you willing to compensate? I don't do my work for it. Do the work yourself. I don't do free labor. That's the stuff that they always say.
Yeah. All right. What do you charge? What are your rates?
He says, what are your rates?
I just love that he called her bluff. Like, no, even for money, because you know you're bluffing. This is just bullshit.
Wait, here's what she said. The work of educating people on the paradox of no. Hang on, sorry. Let me get to it. I lost it. He asked what work she was gonna. He said, "What work? I thought you had something interesting to say, and was interested in, and I was interested in what you thought. Is discussion and listening to each other a billable transaction?" And she said, the work of educating people on the paradox of intolerance. I've done the work to understand it and made my point in my first comment. If you want to debate me, if you want to debate this, then you also would need to go do that work. Otherwise, it is me teaching, and I don't do that for free. No one is entitled to my labor without compensation. How much you want to bet this lady is an avowed communist, or at least a socialist?
That she wouldn't say it. Like, the thing is, like, I'm sure if you said, "Are you a communist?" She's like, "No, not at all." But like, if you asked her opinions, they'd all believe be totally in alignment with communism.
You say, are you a communist? No. Do you believe in the redistribution of wealth? Well, of course. Do you believe in equity? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like, oh, you're not a communist. I'm not a communist. I just believe that the state should take money from wealthy people and give it to poor people. But I'm not a communist.
Here's a little fun thing to tie that stuff all together. The paradox of tolerance was fleshed out in Karl Popper's book, Open Society and Its Enemies. Where did Soros get the name for his Open Societies Foundation?
Oh, wow. Look, we're tying it all together.
Although,
fucking figure.
Soros is bastardizing Karl Popper. Karl Popper is more liberal than what the rest of them are. But, and to tie that all back together too, Sear Stoner used to come at us about James Lindsay talking about George Soros and Karl Popper because he says, "Oh, this guy's going to like the communism and all that stuff." And James Lindsay explicitly said that Soros is a different thing. Soros is a weird investor and does his investment based off of the destabilization of economies, and he's anti-communist because he doesn't like the stable stuff, like not anti-communist like we might be thinking. He's against the Communist Party. He's different than just like a typical commie, but he's
opposed to communist because he can't become a gajillionaire manipulating currency exchanges for his own benefit.
Well, so he supposedly likes open societies, and that's why he named his foundation off of Karl Popper's book right there. But he's bastardized Karl Popper, just like everybody who bastardizes the paradox of tolerance. What they're really talking about is Marcuse's repressive tolerance. What's Marcuse's repressive tolerance?
That's the thing where the right must be censored. They must not be allowed to. Like he even uses the word pre-censored. That conservatives must be pre-censored. That they should not even be allowed to think their thoughts.
The funniest part is that wasn't. I figured when I heard James Lindsay say that the first time that was like just the obvious interpretation of his vague words.
You didn't know it was his title?
No, it's just what he says. That's what he just explicitly says that conservatives need to be censored. It's not up for interpret. Although I'm sure McData could renegotiate that text for us.
Not only should conservatives be censored, conservative ideas should be censored. Left-wing violence should be tolerated. Yeah. See how far that goes? See how good Lord.
No, we lived through it. We're living through it now.
Yeah. Marcuse's world, as they always say. But anyway, how did we get onto Karl Popper and the paradox of tolerance? Oh, it was all the way back to Jim Bennett not being tolerant of.
Oh yeah, we haven't.
And what did Leslie say?
Leslie says Jim Bennett seems to me like Mormonism's version of The View.
You know what I'd call it all, and I'd even put like DeLynn and Matt Harris that we might cover a little bit later, and Jim Bennett and what The View and all that stuff is. It's what academic agent calls the boomer truth regime. They're just part of the boomer truth regime. Like everything they believe is just all part of a single post-war ideology that was given to you by the television. And when you argue with these people, you are arguing with the television. You aren't arguing with them. And that's generally how I view when I go to talk to my parents about anything.
True.
I'm arguing with the television. I'm not arguing with my parents, and I don't even try to argue with my parents. You know,
I just had a thing in Lobsters where a guy's like, "Well, Trump hasn't even talked about Operation Warp Speed because he can't, because his base will rebel if he does." And so I just posted a clip of Trump talking about Operation Warp Speed,
and the crowd booing. Like the crowd didn't like it either.
Well, no, I mean, no, there wasn't even a crowd there, but just like because he said, "Oh," like he was simply saying that Trump hasn't even mentioned it. Like, no,
well, that same guy said
he did mention it. No,
he mentioned it all the time.
There are two guys having different arguments over there.
Well, not only that, the guy said that his crowd doesn't, you know, they just kind of just go along on. They didn't like the vaccines, all that sorts of stuff, and they just go along with it. No, when Trump brought up the vaccines at his rallies, the crowd would boo the vaccines. They're like not so sycophantic as you guys would like to paint them out to be. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that.
But you made the good point on that as well, that like, no, they weren't against the vaccines. They were against the vaccine mandates. And
that thing is like most Republicans got the vaccine. Most people got the vaccine.
Well, most of us had to.
Yeah,
pressured heavily into it.
I'd say I regret getting it, not because I'm afraid of any whatever side effects, whatever.
Yeah, same.
I regret caving.
Yeah, me too. That was
like I didn't have to, but I did just to shut people up.
I remember recently getting into an argument with a guy about like, well, I'm not against vaccines. I'm against this mandate. Like, and he said it was never mandated, and I was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, Biden tried to force OSHA to make that a standard, to force any employer with over 100 employees to force the employees to get vaccinated or face termination. And he's like, well, yeah, and the court overturned it. He's like, yeah, by the time they overturned it,
it took 100 days, more than
that. And Ben Shapiro had to fucking sue.
Not only like in my company. So this is a weird place because I both caved and did not cave, because I caved and took it. One of the reasons I took it is because, just like Flip says or Jared says, I was like, I don't think there's going to be any. So I actually think it's probably closer to a placebo than anything. Like, these people are saying it's not working, they push it out that fast. I bet you it's just close to jack shit. And so whatever, I'll put it in me. And actually, I am a little bit afraid that there could be like later little side effects or something, like, little heart issues or something like that. But not anything to overly freak out about. But yeah, I'm sad I caved. But then I didn't cave to my company. I told my company, do not mandate this. Do not mandate this. Do not mandate this. And one of the reasons I said don't mandate it is I promised them the court would overturn it. But I also, and I put a lot at stake on that, but I also said one of the reasons they're doing that is this fascism that everybody talks about, this corporate private, this public-private partnership. So the reason they want you to enforce it is so that if anybody comes looking for reparations, or what would they call it, like any sort of payment, or some
if there
sort
was
of,
an injury,
they're going to put it on you because you mandated it, not them. And that's they want to dump off the liability onto you. And so I was able to talk the company out of mandating it. But in that meantime, in that single 100 days, you want to know what happened? Pop-up companies were calling me. Like, companies were already formed. Companies of tracking people's people's compliance and software to track the compliance for shots were already formed. I was already getting calls from people selling that shit. So that's how long it was dangling out there. And that whole time it was dangling out there, all sorts of companies, including like the VA, which they ultimately lost enough that the VA people were able to sue back, that the people lost their jobs and that sort of stuff. And I helped my friend use Robert Barnes's version of Robert Barnes created a religious exemption form that you could put out there, and it didn't have to be like religious. It's just, I hold a strongly held religious belief that is my choice to do this sorts of thing, like, and not even based on any sort of religion. He gave the legal writing to put that out on a piece of paper. And some people pointed at the Mormon church as like them taking that away from different people, because they said, we don't back any sort of religious exemption, so people couldn't use Mormonism as their reason to get out of it. But Robert Barnes helped create a thing that you could just say, based off of your own ontological beliefs about your being and choosing and that sorts of stuff, that you could make the argument. And he got out of it at working at the VA. But a lot of people in the VA and all those other places got actually forcibly removed. I guess Jared, you're a government worker, so you were like the rest of us. It was just kind of like implied, and they were hoping that those companies would put it in. Well, and then any sort of government place, I think they actually put it in for those 100 days.
So it's more like a government subcontractor. Like, I work for a subcontractor that works for the DOE, right? So I do work for a private company that's kind of government-ish, but yeah, they didn't have to do that, and they did. They just saw the writing on the wall and decided to be like, yeah, you guys got to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
They're like, you all know this is bullshit. That's the crazy part, is the amount of people that knew it was bullshit and just bitched out anyway. Just was like, go to make you do it.
It was a tough 100 days because companies who kind of just didn't know thought they had to do it. I guarantee you there were some companies who weren't even like crazy about feeling they had to do it, thought they were duped into thinking they had to get it implemented already.
Yeah.
So
we're living in two different realities, and I have the reality, and that's not the reality. When I'm seeing the opposite, right? And is it possible to say, okay, people are being fed, like I just think that we are in a time when all of the divisive forces of hell have been unleashed in our society. And we are trying to get people to judge one another and to dehumanize one another and see each other, try to explain people in terms of what we assume their motives are, rather than going, okay, is it possible that an intelligent, informed person with integrity that is a good person could disagree with me on this? And if they do,
Jim thinks that no.
Oh, for sure.
That's why I think Jacob even put up the short. Maybe I'll find the short. It's from this. but it's in this whole long thing. I might not be able to find it, where he says he's seriously questioning and doubting his faith because he has to go sit in the pews with people who voted that way.
Yeah.
Could that be because they have different information than I have? Or we are both seeing, maybe there are things I'm seeing that they're not seeing and things they're seeing that I'm not.
Well, I see, Michelle, I have my information from the corporate media, which is sacrosanct, and everything they say has been true and truthful all along.
See, I don't even treat flat earthers the way that Jim Bennett treats Trumpers, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because I had this discussion with myself, like this weird little crisis years ago, where I was like, how stupid does an idea have to be before you just dismiss it outright? Because I hate it when people just dismiss outright my ideas. Like Maven just dismisses the fact that I could not be sexist. Like that seems like a normal, I don't know, normal level of idea. But I think of like the polygamy denial or flat earthers or stuff like that. And I was like, that idea is so stupid to me that like, it's not so much that I'm dismissing it as a possibility as I'm just like, this is stupid and I don't even want to talk about it, you know?
Well, Michelle Stone's almost kind of like a perfect example of that, because you could kind of see from her and flat earthers, not to say she's exactly a flat earther, because I think she has more ground to say her like flat earther does, but she could be the example of like why people doing their own research can get scrambly and wild and out there. And guess what? It's fine. It's not only it's fine, it's good. It's good that that person's out there. It's good that that person makes you want to go double check and look at and think harder about it and wonder if it really was true and look into it. And that.
Well, like I remember when the Who Shot Joseph Smith documentary came out, I was like, I doubt this has any substance behind it, but wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool to find out that Brigham Young conspired with John Taylor and Willard Richards to kill Joseph and Hiram? I wasn't at all convinced by it, but
it's interesting to like go listen to them and then listen to counter arguments and get like a deeper understanding of a thing that you just kind of always took for granted in a single sentence.
No, I will say that
entire life.
I will say that is one thing interesting about the flat Earth debate that I didn't expect is. It is interesting learning all of the actual new ways that people disprove it. Things like that you wouldn't immediately think about, like how latitudinal lines curve as you get closer to the North or South Pole, you know, and how that wouldn't make sense on a flat Earth model.
Yeah.
They're actually supposed to, this year, they've got that expedition where the guy's taking the flat Earthers to Antarctica to see if there's a 24-hour sunlight,
so they can learn it. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I think this December 19th, I think is when it's happening. I can't remember.
But at the same time, too, like with anything, you learn stuff about them that makes you kind of go, well, I'm glad I learned the explanation of why that's wrong too, and I never would have learned the explanation of why that's wrong. Like anytime you look into something and get deeper into it, I appreciate that people make me do that. Like people keep mentioning like the supposed Holocaust deniers. And I think we brought up that Saturday Night Live skit, although I don't think we put it on here because we get in trouble for Saturday Night Live, that Heather Locklear in the 90s had that little skit with Mike Myers where they're just like trying to sell something on like a QVC network. And then she suddenly says, this is so simple. It's just as simple as denying the Holocaust. And she just like keeps saying that stuff. And it just, the phones start ringing off the hook and all that. And you couldn't make that joke now today. But
I do that at work all the time. That's especially when there's new people there. Like somebody will explain, you know, one of our principles to them or whatever, and I'll just be like, "Do you actually want to listen to this guy? Like, I bet this retard believes that the fucking Holocaust happened." And, anytime there's a new person around, they're like,
Well, I keep mentioning to bring up the dreaded Nick Fuentes again, which, by the way, did you see Milo Yiannopoulos on Tim Pool last night?
I watched parts of that. And
I'd be curious to see Milo Yiannopoulos again, but I don't know if I can handle it.
Well, he talked about bringing Nick Fuentes to meet with Trump and why they did that, and they were trying to sabotage Trump.
Yeah, I just don't know if I believe him because he's also talking about how Lauren Boebert sucked
Laura
Trump's
Loomer.
dick.
He said Laura Loomer
blew Trump, and I mean,
she's not actually Jewish. She just claimed that she's Jewish.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that guy, I've only ever considered that guy an insult comic.
Yeah, that's basically all it is. He's just a rage machine, which I think Nick Fuentes is the same too, except like he's a bit of a fed.
No,
or
but why do
something.
people take like nobody takes? I can't think of his name all of a sudden. Jeffrey
Sam Hyde?
Jeff Ross.
Oh yeah.
Like nobody takes him seriously because he's an insult comic. But
Yeah.
for some reason, Milo Yiannopoulos, people think he's real. I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, he's totally straight now, and he dresses like a straight guy. And dates
He's not.
women.
He's not constantly talking about how much he likes black dick anymore.
Oh no,
he divorced his husband, and he's been conversion therapied.
He's a straight Catholic Chad now.
He had a debate with Destiny about a year ago, and he was clearly blitzed out of his mind. I think on Tim Pool he was doing coke, man. He was erratic.
I think he's hardly interesting anymore because he's kind of too far out there. But to get all the way back to Nick Fuentes, he got all in trouble, I think kicked off of YouTube for making that joke about Cookie Monster and cookies. And if you cook 600 cookies a day for 2 years, for 3, and it's all ostensibly a Holocaust denial joke because you're trying to count how many people.
6 million cookies in 3 years or whatever. And that's impossible. We don't have enough ovens.
And oh my gosh, we had to ban that from the internet because you couldn't make the same joke on Saturday Night Live in 1995. But that joke made me go and spend like a day looking up how many ovens there were. And I learned about a whole lot more ovens that were out there than I thought were out there.
Really?
Oh yeah, there was like over 1,000.
Well, see, that's the worst thing you could possibly do for anti-Semitism is make Holocaust denial illegal. And that's what Germany did. A lot of European countries did. And you'll hear about some like 80-year-old grandma getting arrested for Holocaust denial. And that's insane. Like we got a family member that believes in hollow earth with mole people that are like basically benevolent angels who during the second coming are going to rise to the surface and usher in a utopia. I'm like, that's fucking weird. Anyway, you want to go get a beer? Like that's
yeah.
Why does that matter? Like John Pajau has that book out, and I heard him explain the basic thesis of the book, and I haven't read it, but the title's brilliant. It's just most of the time the earth is flat. And I was thinking about it, I kind of like that. The whole idea that like if you have an orthodontist, it's the best orthodontist ever. He aligns your teeth without even having to use braces, and he does it for cheap, and he's really efficient. And then he tells you one day that obviously the earth is flat. Are you going to stop going to? Like, do you really fucking care? Like, how many professions in the world exist that a flat earther couldn't fill? Probably an astronaut, probably a rocket scientist, orthodontist, construction worker. Like, those people could be flat earthers and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leslie said it right. He said, I can't sit in the pews with people who voted for fascism. And Swindle Machine says Jim has no mental model for how the other half thinks. That is 100% true. And
that's even exactly what Troy said. Troy had a big comment on this.
No, that's the thing I know they've done.
On the video?
Yeah, on this YouTube video, he had a big comment about.
There's a lot of actual research on this. Like, I know they've done the study over and over and over again, but if you ask self-identified lefties to explain the position of conservatives, they get it wrong.
Yeah.
But when you ask self-identified conservatives to explain the values of lefties, they get it right.
Well, that was. I don't know. Never mind. I can't talk. I'll go on.
I can't talk.
I'm trying to find Troy's. Does Troy go by Troy in the comments? Or
yeah, it's his profile.
There's Harambe Boy. Man, Jim is very close-minded. I don't see it. Doesn't pull Troy if I search by the name.
No, probably won't. I don't think it wasn't in the live chat, but it's a pretty long comment. You'll probably see it if you just scroll down quite a bit. I don't know. He posted it in the Longhouse too, and he's scheduled because he basically compared Jim Bennett to Jacob Hansen, saying that they're the worst in steel manning their opposition view, and Jacob commented on it saying, well, come on to my channel. And
that's where it came from. It came from this one.
Yeah,
that had to have been a different episode. It must have been when Jim was talking with Cultural Hall, because this happened after.
I think you're right. Yeah,
this happened after his decision to or his dialogue opened up with Jacob.
Yeah. So it sounds like Troy is tentatively going to be on Jacob's channel. And
Or already had it. He said it was like this morning, and maybe it's like recorded in the back.
Was it? Oh, I thought Jacob had to cancel.
Oh, is that what happened? I didn't see.
Yeah, I thought he
I was
said
busy
that.
today.
I think he said he
And
canceled.
the title was Jacob Steelman's Atheism.
Mm. Well, the Midnight Mormons or the Wards are doing it right now tonight.
Dude, he should just read some Dostoevsky. Read the Brothers Karamazov. Like Dostoevsky's is the best Christian steelman of atheism.
Yeah.
I'm not saying maybe we're prioritizing different things in different ways, but is it possible that they're not just wrong and I'm right?
Well, of course, it's always possible that I'm wrong, and it's always possible. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay,
Jim, I think you're close to true south of wrong.
I know. Well, it's like this reminds me of when there's like a really this word has been abused to hell, but like when there's like a really narcissistic mother, and she. Like the kids finally kind of confront her on her bullshit, and her answer is, "Of course I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect." But then proceeds to like label no specific instances of her being imperfect. Like it does zero self-reflection or anything like that of what's wrong with her.
Yeah.
Go back to Daniel Patrick Moynihan's famous comment that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Nobody is entitled to their own facts.
yes, I agree with that.
I mean,
And you have a lot of facts wrong, Jim Bennett. A lot of them.
This is actually a good spectrum here to the difference between like a healthy person is like halfway between Michelle and Jim, because the whole you can't have your own facts thing is like, yeah, but Jim here is so fast and loose with what he calls a fact. It's just like ask him anything that MSNBC deems a fact, if it's a fact, and he will say yes. But Michelle is really fast and loose with what she says isn't a fact.
Yeah. MSNBC really is going down. I can't believe they're all going down like as hard as they are. But
oh, it's satisfying to watch.
So as you start talking about these things, I am happy to agree to disagree about policy. I am not happy to agree to disagree about facts.
I agree with you.
No,
Yes.
well, so I mean, so this is the reason I find it so frustrating to engage with Trumpers is not that I disagree with them on policy. It's that we don't share a common set of facts. You believe
that's putting it mildly.
I mean, is it?
I commented on the video, but I said Jim Bennett. The reason I got blocked on Twitter from Jim Bennett is I just mentioned Tara Reid.
Yeah,
and he said Tara Reid is Russian propaganda.
Yeah, because you're disagreeing with him on fact.
He said it's Russian propaganda. She's a Russian spy. Bye.
That's him being fast and loose on what is a fact. He heard that on MSNBC, and he said they're correct.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that your set of facts is correct and mine is not?
Or wait, let me is it possible that I don't believe the set of facts you think I believe, right? Is it possible?
Well, I'm not here to judge what set of facts you believe or what set.
And they got into that because he kept trying to bring up, like, did you think 2020 was rigged? Which they used to think that was a dunk, but now all the lefties are in doubt about what happened in 2020 themselves.
Well, and it's also I'll give her some credit here. She actually responded to that in the right way.
Yeah.
She responded it kind of in the way that I would, basically, where it's like, I'm not saying ballot machine go brrr. I'm saying that you guys definitely fucked with the election.
There was an anomaly in votes that year. It was fortified, as Time magazine said it.
Yeah, but even without that,
or didn't.
Like, even without that, you guys suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story, which is a big deal. And of course, he said, like, I don't care about Hunter Biden. He's not the president, which clearly he doesn't know what was on the laptop, because she said it implicates Joe Biden in some
she said
scandalous
that in passing.
shit.
He said that in passing, but he's like, brr, brr, brr. Like, don't say anything about that, you know. And,
but you guys suppressed that, and you got 51 former CIA intelligence operatives to say that was Russian disinformation, and later they're like, no, it wasn't. Like, oops.
That's one of those things where it's like, I mean, like talk to my brother, who I know didn't used to think the way he does now, where it's like just that, like, okay, we now know that the FBI lied to Facebook and Twitter and who knows who else about the Hunter Biden laptop. We know they lied about it. And not that they were mistaken, not that they got their facts wrong, not that they didn't have everything. Like, no, we now know that at the time that, according to Mark Zuckerberg, the FBI came to him and said, this is Russian disinformation. The FBI was already in possession of the laptop, and they knew it was legitimate. We know that because that was attested to under oath in congressional hearings. And like that isn't the biggest scandal, or one of the biggest scandals to me is one of those, like, well, it's one of the great victories of the media and the machine, is that, like, how are we not turning the FBI upside fucking down right now to figure out how that happened?
Yeah.
And supposedly they're saying that they are or trying to do it. That's the part of the Doge thing or whatever. And the entirety of the left is freaking out. And you keep seeing people on Twitter like, half of the Department of Justice is resigning because of who Trump has appointed. And we're like,
yeah, no shit.
Yes, good, good. Oh, I want to pull up that.
I'm gonna get ahead of it real quick here and just say hashtag Tulsi Gabbard didn't kill herself.
You need it for all of them, man.
Set of facts you don't believe.
Right.
I can look at Donald Trump and say, when Donald
Everybody's been pushing the Tulsi Gabbard thing this week. Glenn Greenwald's been covering it a whole lot. That everybody's back to Tulsi Gabbard's a Russian agent. Like the Russia gates back up with Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, I showed you guys that thing. They're investigating Elon Musk for supposedly talking to Putin.
Yeah,
like it's all Russia again, just like that. Russia.
Yeah,
So I just heard today, like somebody today. I think it was in Lobsters. Somebody brought up Russian interference. It's like, God damn it, you guys still believe that? Talking about flat Earth, you guys still fucking believe it. It's astounding.
Trump, when you tell me that Haitians are eating cats and dogs, that is factually incorrect. So I'm
like, okay, there's another one that's got this whole thing where it's like, okay,
we can grant you that it's overstated,
yeah,
but it's not factually incorrect.
Yeah. It's for sure overstated, not factually incorrect.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that Trump didn't overstate anything. Like, all he said is they're eating the pets. He didn't give a number. Right? There you go.
I mean, he was being sensational and like
for sure.
But he's like he is pointing to a real problem.
They're pointing to a thing that
it should weird you out. It should weird
yeah.
you out that a small town in Ohio is now like randomly
doubled in population. Doubled in population for people who have very different views about reality. And I one of the things that I loved, I don't have it to pull up right now. I did a couple weeks ago, but we didn't look at it. Is and Troy can maybe verify if this is possibly true or not. But a corner of Twitter, which was like Korean Twitter, started like saying, well, you don't want to tell them what grandma and grandpa used to do when we were young.
Oh man.
And there was a bunch of them, and there's a bunch of them laughing, going, "Yep, whoop, yep, whoop."
I'm not going to sit here and respect and agree to disagree over a matter of fact.
Okay,
That's not happening. That is not true. And so for me to say, okay, well, let's stop.
The thing is, like, if Jim Bennett was sitting in front of us and we even wanted to like get that out, that everything we just described right there, he'd be and then like and hang up before, or kick you off of this Twitter page before you could get anything out about it.
Well, Jim acts like he acts like the guy that wants to talk to the opposition and not get political, but he just says that and then does the opposite. Like, it isn't political, but Trumpers are denying reality, and I think the only reason he agreed to do this is because he thought they agreed on Trump. Like, because Michelle kind of takes a feminist angle when she's talking about polygamy and how God loves his daughters, so he would never do polygamy. And so that's probably it's kind of like Maven, how the only thing she knew about my Reddit account was that I said males shouldn't play in female sports. And from that, she extrapolated that also, I don't think that rape is wrong. And I'm not against femicide. And it's just like Jim Bennett, he heard Michelle say that, oh, women hurt in polygamy. And so she's like, she definitely didn't vote for Trump.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'll listen to a little bit more of that. What was there a video we were just about to poll that had to do with this too? Before I move on to the Lynn stuff, we just mentioned the video that.
I mean, there was the Colts one with Jim, but we did that last week.
The shirtless Christian.
The shirtless.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
shirtless Christian getting harassed by by
Well-
team empathy and compassion.
We'll listen to a little bit more of this real quick.
Start talking about policies. It's like, well, what policies am I going to be able to talk about with your fictional scenario that is not happening?
And so for me, when I'm hearing these kinds of discourses and I'm seeing, and this is interesting to get into politics, because especially right after this election and especially with such passionate feelings. But for me, I have been so frustrated by this focus on, and I hate to get into politics because I don't want to alienate everyone. This is where I am. I'm like, oh, in so many ways, what has happened has not been good for our nation. I thought that Donald Trump would be out of it clear back in the first race when he said that to Megyn Kelly. And I was like, okay, good, let's be done with him. So I would never call myself, and everyone's different. I know my mom really appreciates Donald Trump. I don't, but I do not appreciate the other side. I do not appreciate the fact that it is this focus on criticism of Donald Trump in order to ignore things that I find to be absolutely deplorable on the other side. And it's this whole focus of how could anybody vote for him without taking any responsibility or ownership of the alternative, and how we're so it feels like there's a big arrogance there that's not recognizing things that are really important to me, and that and I don't like feeling like the good people voted one way, the bad people voted one way. I think that it's good if we can, because I understand that you're saying this is the set of facts, but I also know that also, like, how big that cat and dog statement is to
The
you.
cat and dog statement is a shorthand.
It's symbolic, right?
Do you believe, for instance, that Donald Trump lost in 2020?
Oh, see, this is where this is what I think. Honestly, I think that just about everything was done to make that election look as suspect as possible. And I think it's very unfortunate. I think that saying that it is racist to have voter ID is something that I don't think is genuine.
It's a yes or no question, though. It's a yes or no question. Did Donald Trump win?
No, it's not a yes or no question, because
Yes,
you're
it is.
being.
It's a matter of fact. It's a matter of fact. It's a matter of record. I mean, if we can't agree on that,
but see, why do you assume?
Then to go on and say how you feel about something that is based on something that we don't agree on what the basic fact.
Jim Bennett, did Obama and Jimmy Carter at one point in their careers win elections by getting about 10% of the write-in ballots thrown out? Did it happen to both of them at any point in either of their two careers? Did any ballots get thrown out in the 2020 election? Like, is that dubious? It's as simple as that. Like, the thing is, I remember when Biden won, and I wasn't like one to get upset or freak out or just be like that. And I saw my parents just being like, "Whoa!" I saw them just like totally relieved and all that sorts of stuff. Like their faces, it was like, you remember when we posted Jim Bennett freaking out and playing that "We Are the Champions" song on the piano.
Oh yeah.
My parents were a little bit like that, and I just said right in that moment, like, they got to audit this, and not because Trump won. Like, they got to audit this to show that they won. They got to show that they won, just so that we can, if they want unity, like they're claiming that they want.
I remember saying that to so many of my lefty friends, where it's like, if everything is above board, then there's nothing wrong with looking, right? All that will do is confirm that everything was above board. The fact that everybody is resisting the audit makes it look worse. Like, no, let's look. And because
and worse than that, it's inauditable. That's something Sam Scott Adams points out. Is like and Elon too. As they looked into it, like, you can't audit it. There's nothing. It's not even like available to audit. But what you can do? I can't find that clip. Which group did I post it in?
Oh. I posted.
Should we watch the Venture
Facebook.
Brothers?
Hang on. Oh, Venture Brothers.
Will it even show up? I don't know if Venture Brothers will.
I think they will. That's I think HBO has. I don't know. It's
I think Hulu has that.
Who is it? It's Cartoon Network. So
Yeah, but it's half of it goes to Hulu and half of it goes to HBO. I'm pretty sure Hulu has Venture Bros.
here we go. I got the clip of the shirtless guy.
Are you sharing it? Or are you sending it on the?
I sent it on the thing because I'm from the past.
Here.
So this is like, I just love this because it's just like I spend so much time trying to talk about, well, feminists are aggressive, they're mean, they completely lack empathy, they push crazy conspiracy theories, and they don't care who they hurt, and I go on for days and weeks and hours, and then like we just have this 15 seconds to show us exactly what feminism is really about.
Wait, the swindle machine says, I liked how he said he was closest politically to Liz Cheney on cult characters. Was that what? Something Jim said? Jim's closest to Liz Cheney? Is that what? I don't remember him saying that.
I don't quite understand that.
Just Jim saying that I'm closest to Liz Cheney. If we're talking about like any one of those people, yeah. And of course, like the people, the old good Republicans that he said were good are all the neocons that, we brought up that quote that Dave Smith just said a while back of like, all the murder in the world, all the stuff, all the killing, all the wars, all that stuff, but mean tweets type deal, Mr. Clark says there's a limit in effectiveness to audits and convincing the other side in results. Lyman, despite 2 audits, couldn't accept that Cox got enough signatures. Yeah, I think there's true. There still would have been people who would have disagreed with it, but I think Michelle gave like the ultimate answer to that is like, there's nothing you could do to change it or go back or do anything, but we can say there was dubious things. But yeah, we accept he was president. It happened. It's, he was the president for 4 years. Yeah, Leslie, I don't care about Stormy Daniels. She's not running for office.
I know, that's funny.
And then it's just that whole thing where it's like the left suddenly pretends to care about sexual affairs, like, because I'm old enough to remember the Lewinsky scandal when I was told that, hey, it's a personal thing. The fact that you're even bringing someone's personal sex life into politics is uncouth. That's what I was told 25, almost 30 years ago. And my whole thing is like, no, he lied under oath. Like, he was asked under oath and he lied. Like, that's my problem. I don't actually care so much about the affair because, politicians have affairs. But it's that he lied. And then I go, well, no, he lied about a personal thing.
That one I think is always overlooked too. That she technically worked for him.
She was
that's
20.
That's a major no.
Like, she wasn't even drinking age, and he was like what, in his close to 50.
Yeah. Here we go. Throwback that time I was reporting on Roe v. Wade protest.
This guy has blood on his hands. He wants to kill people. Don't listen to him.
I love people.
He's taking people's number down and trying to get them arrested for getting healthcare.
I deny those allegations. So I'm just here to support life. Life was hard for me, single mother, but the hard times made me a more empathetic person. And I love all these people out here. I pray to Jesus that their hearts and minds change today.
She's great for a fucking skincare.
I know. My dad has
Stupid.
So, you're, a one-man band over here.
Mom and dad.
Didn't we have that I probably
I just love that it ends with body shaming. Literally just an attack on somebody's skin. Like, okay,
this reminds me of
more feminist.
Well, it reminds me of when we had Maven on, and she was describing like the terrible life of a baby that should have been aborted, about how he's poor and he can't, like, he's got a negligent mother and like his terrible family. And Charles was in the chat and he just goes, that was my life. You're describing my life. I'm glad I'm alive.
Yeah. No, we have that friend too. Like, he even talks about where he's like, like he says, like, whenever it comes up when somebody says like my wife survived an abortion attempt. Like, somebody talked the mom out of it. Like, I'm so happy that didn't happen. Like, and she went through hell. Her childhood was extremely nightmarish in ways that I'm not going to get into here. And she doesn't wish her mom had an abortion. She's glad she's got her chance on the roulette wheel of life. Even though her childhood sucked balls, she came through it, and now she's doing great. And
it just goes back to how much suffering, like how much suffering is too much suffering. Tell us exactly how much, like what lives should be aborted. Like how poor do you have to be before it would be better if you had been killed in the womb?
Yeah. But that thing's like, by that, like, because that's the thing. Like, okay, if you're really concerned about poor people having kids, Maven, why the fuck aren't you in fucking India handing out birth control left and right? Oh, that's right, because that would be racist.
Yeah. I want to move on to Delin, and on Delin's show, they brought up Jonathan Streeter's fake apology again. However, first I wanted to look. I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to like cabinet appointments and stuff like that, I do not want a Secretary of Education unless she's taken the tombstone from Kane.
I can't believe this is real.
Here is our next. What do they call that cabinet member? What do they call him? Director of Education? Secretary of Education. Here is our next Secretary of Education and the Mayor of Knox County, Kane, giving our next Secretary of Education a tombstone on cement. Whoa! It's kayfabe, folks. It's all kayfabe. I think anybody who wants to be in the cabinet should have taken a tombstone from Kane or the Undertaker at some point. And I think Trump did. I don't know if he took a tombstone, but he got whooped up in the WWE at one point.
He was born in Spain.
Who?
Kane.
Oh, nah.
Born in Torrejón de Ardoz in España. Jacobs was born in the Spanish town of blah, blah, blah to a United States. Oh, Air Force. Nah, that's not real Spanish.
He's supposedly like one of the coolest guys ever. I watch the Undertaker's podcast, and it's a great podcast because he talks about all this stuff. And the Undertaker had Trump on like 2 weeks before the election too. That was
really?
Yeah, it was the better interview than Joe Rogan. And,
wow.
And at the end of it, he brought his daughter on, who's in college sports, and says, "Tell me that, that sort of stuff."
Huh. Fascinating.
Okay.
For her to acknowledge that, to say that, because she joined the church before the priesthood ban, she joined the.
Wait, where is that? Let me back up. I think Jonathan gave the time on this, but.
And after the papers the panel I was on, we delivered our papers. There was a Q&A from the audience, and in the audience was one of the most prominent, longstanding members in the Black Mormon community. Her name is Catherine Stokes. She'd been a member for a long time at that point. The brethren like her. They trust her. She's done some community outreach on behalf of the church over the years. So she's been a stalwart Latter-day Saint for a number of years. I even heard somebody once refer to her as a Black pioneer. And so Kathy Stokes was in the audience, and I noticed her when she walked in. I'd never met her. I was thrilled that she was there. Been reading about her for years. And during the Q&A, she raised her hand, and the moderator called on her. And I should tell you, the panel was about race.
What?
And she raised her hand and she said that racism today is more intense than it was when I joined the church in 40 plus years ago, she said.
Okay.
And I think that
you're right, except that the racism is coming from a certain political ideological faction. It's coming out of the universities. It's not coming from the brethren. It's not coming from the membership. Like the racism, it's true. America's way more racist today than it was in 1995 because of college. Like that's who's doing the racism. It's them.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll pull it up or not, but there's a point later, I already mentioned earlier, where the other guy on this panel here was talking about trying to create race segregated wards, and they had some sort of a program. I forget what it was called. It's in the comments. Jonathan has it, but it was some program of like some black singers or some black group or something like that. And they had to disband it because too many white people were wanting to join it.
How do you
They really said that too. I'm not,
you fucking okay, like how do you not understand that that's like antithetical to the modern Mormon church's goals? Like their biggest thing is missionary work and talking about how they span the four corners of the globe, right? They're talking about
So they talked about that Corbett guy, the dude who said any sort of activism against the church is bad. This guy said that he had many conversations with him, but it became apparent to me that he cared more about considering himself a member of the church than about being a black man first or something like that.
Uncle Ruckus.
Brother
Ruckus.
Ruckus.
Brother Ruckus.
Brother
Jesus.
Tom.
That's how do you not get that? That's like racist, like, oh, you're having all of the opinions that a black man shouldn't.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know, it's just that whole thing where it's like feminists, like, I don't hate men. I just collectively hold them responsible for all the world's problems. It's not hate.
All right, so here to go into Jonathan.
And so I was on a panel with Darren when news broke that the church had allegedly apologized for its past racism. And do you have that statement up, John, or do you want me to read it from my book?
Go ahead and read it. I mean, what I do have a slide, but I don't think it includes the statement. So just really quickly, here's the website. Can we show it? Is that okay?
Yeah, and I'll read it. So
it looks. Let me just set it up. So this is a website that it's got the logo of the church, and for those who just listen, it's got the logo of the church in the top left. It says newsroom, the official source for LDS News, and then the headline says President Nelson meets with NAACP, offers apology for history of racism. It's in May of, is that 2018? Is that right?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, 2018. And what Julie did is she put a screenshot of Jonathan Streeter's website right next to the official church newsroom, and it was clearly made to look identical, even though it came from a totally different URL. But even the URL that they chose was kind of could lead lots of people to think it was an official website.
I think the only difference was the little dash in the URL.
Yeah.
So the punchline, I don't think we've divulged the punchline yet. The punchline is a white Latter-day Saint, disaffected Latter-day Saint man named Jonathan Streeter.
White. Insensitive prankster. He really said white. He doesn't even know that he's Mexican. That fucking racist piece of shit,
Jonathan doesn't pull
Jonathan Streeter.
Yeah, Jonathan doesn't play that card as often as he should.
What is Streeter in Spanish? Callador?
Yo soy Jordan Callador. Yo soy Messi Mexicano.
Callador, I like that. Yeah, I have no addition to that. I think you Spanished perfectly. Yeah. Where was I? Got to get back to that screen.
Had created a fake apology, and as John pointed out, he not just wrote the apology, but he created a website and a URL that was supposed to match the church's. And the President Nelson was meeting with the NAACP around this same time. And so allegedly President Nelson had made this to the NAACP. And this is what the comment said. We, the church leadership, have previously acknowledged that the false and racist explanations for the priesthood and temple restriction were wrong and disavowed them. Today, I am declaring that the ban itself was wrong. It was not of God, but of fallible men born of ignorance, pride, and sin. On behalf of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, its current and past leaders and members, I offer this humble apology and plead for forgiveness in the merciful name of Jesus Christ. Amen. I mean, I knew this was bogus the minute I heard it, because this is not what church leaders do. And they would have been far more circumspect if they had announced a comment about, apologizing. It wouldn't have been this.
Well, he points out why it is bogus, and Jonathan talked in detail about that with Bill Real and RFM, that he kind of purposely made it so you could sniff out it was bogus. you know, he wanted it to be a little bit more overly intense so that any kind of rational person would pick up on that. But
he did perfectly. It really is a monumental piece of, I don't know what you call it, internet shenanigans.
trollery, yeah.
But
This,
yeah, so glorious.
graphic when it says that, you know, the band was not of God but of foul.
Jonathan is like, we see Jonathan get up to stuff sometimes. The way he just kind of like quietly gets up to something and then just goes and fucks with people. He's still doing it, man. He's just like, Jonathan's up to something. Something's up with John. Something's up with John. He's just
his response to that lady, what are your rates?
But like his beautiful trouble, he posted on Mormon stories, or just kind of concoct something up out of nowhere. What the hell is this?
Fallible men born of ignorance, pride, and sin. There's no way that a senior church officer would talk about one of his predecessors that way. No way.
Yes, they have.
So I knew it was bogus, but I didn't know who did it.
They wouldn't put it in an official statement like that.
Yeah, they might not put it in an official statement, but like, yeah, no, like the whole, like the prophets are fallible is the line that I've grown up with. So that's not like something out of the blue.
And Darren,
he talks in this, he goes into detail talking about Uchtdorf, and he mentioned how Uchtdorf gets removed from the first presidency, and he thinks Uchtdorf got removed from the first presidency for saying prophets or those people can be fallible. He thinks it was intentionally done for that. I don't know if that's true or not.
Smith knew it was bogus just by the way that it read. And so he and I talked about this. And then in the meantime, some members of the Black American community, they were jumping for joy. You know, this is the apology we've long wanted.
Hey, Matt, is it okay if we ask Nate how he heard about it and what his immediate reactions were? Nate, was it the
Jared, can you tell me like what you think about this? Well, were you could you muster up some tears when you talk about
I cannot tell you how little attention I was paying to the ex-Mormon world when this happened.
Thank you. We really appreciate you having it.
I saw it and I was like, oh, they apologized? And then I didn't listen. And then I was like, oh, it was fake? Oh, okay.
I really appreciate your perspective. I appreciate having you here on this panel to share your insight with us. And that's an angle that I wouldn't have thought of.
Also, just remember that my link to my Venmo and Cash App are in my bio. I'll just keep reminding you that every time you thank me for my emotional labor, which I am providing, hopefully not free of charge.
Also, were you anticipating what this guy was going to say? Because once again, you anticipated.
He's supposed to say something stupid.
No, he said I didn't really pay attention. I don't know what you're talking.
even happening in your awareness?
Oh yeah, I remember when it came out. It was interesting when I heard that there was an apology. I remember hearing about it, and I didn't have much of a desire to go and look at it right away. I almost thought it was like too good to be true. And then by the time I did get around to looking at it, I had already found out that it was fake.
Were you a believer?
That's a Black Menace, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So the Black Menace activist, when he heard that the church had apologized to Black people, he was like, whatever.
He wasn't a Black Menace yet.
Yeah, I know, but he was a Black member of the church, and he, because like a lot of these people, like Sisters in Zion, talk about how. No, I don't think so. What I'm saying is like the Sisters in Zion try to act like it was traumatizing, like that it was. I thought finally my church was apologizing, and he took my hopes and crushed them, and I was like, and this guy's like, yeah, I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
You being faithful member at the time?
Oh yeah, I was for sure. I was actually singing in the choir for the B1 event. So I was, in practices for that, and I was very gung ho about that at the time. So yeah, when this apology came out, I remember hearing about it and thinking, oh, that sounds too good to be true. And I didn't really want to go and read it yet. And then by the time I did get around to reading it, I had already found out that it was, fake, had been put out by Jonathan Streeter. And I just remember being like, that checks, that makes sense.
Did anyone at the choir, when you're going through rehearsals and all that, did anyone talk about this apology?
There were people who talked about being brokenhearted.
Could you cry more? Could you muster up some could you?
That it wasn't.
Dylan is so fucking mad right now.
There was definitely some sentiment about that. People talked about how it really affected them in a negative way. Finding out that it wasn't a real apology because it gave them hope for a moment. It gave them hope and a sense of the future and healing. And it was a very optimistic time because it was the 40th anniversary of the priesthood ban being lifted, which is why that B1 event was being held. And so it all seemed to kind of fit into place and fall into place for a moment. And then it really seemed like an opportunity for progress. But then to find out that, no, the church is still not apologizing. They still don't care enough to apologize. That was definitely heartbreaking for a lot of people.
And I'll just show really quickly before you continue, the news coverage after it was discovered. This is Slate. And the headline is, a fake site posted an apology for the Mormon Church's history of racism. Black Mormons wish it was real. And then your book goes on to talk.
Man, I'll never get a troll off that gets published in Slate. Dang it.
Talk about several people's expressions of disappointment, right? Or heartbrokenness, some even trauma, right, Matt?
Yeah, that's the word that at least one Black American woman said was that it was traumatic. That's the word they used. I also want to just talk about the person who did this. And I don't know this person, but
white, 50% white person.
I mean, to think that you could do this as a
Juan Cayedo
prank, which is what he later said, and not understand what was at stake here, and not understand how sensitive and raw and emotional this could be. I mean, that's another whole commentary to just clearly miss the mark about a prank that would hurt so many people. That to me was part of the story too, is how could you not know this?
This is just scholarly opinion.
So anyway, but it makes the church look bad because there are so many people in the Black Mormon community who want an apology, including these long-standing stalwarts, Kathy Stokes and Darius Gray and others. And then when there's a fake apology, it just really shines a bright spotlight on the fact that, hey, church, you need to give an authentic apology. You can't just acknowledge that mistakes were made in passive voice. Let's have an apology here. And honestly, the B1 event that Nate, you just referenced, President Oaks gave an address there that I think we'll view in just a minute. But President Oaks, he's very clear about this. Not only does he not think that apologies are scriptural, but, which I think is just sort of a throwaway line, I think the real issue is they just want to look forward. That's what President Hinckley wanted to do, and that's what President Oaks and President Nelson want to do. They want to look forward and just focus on the good the church is doing in Africa, and also the good the church is doing in the Black community today, Black American community today with the NAACP that we'll talk about in just a second. So, but yet there are still members who, in order to heal, they need an apology, and the church just hasn't gotten there yet.
Wait, so can I ask, I can't recall this in your book, but in the fake apology, it's dated May 17th, and then the story broke from Slate May the next day. Did the church even have to address that it was fake, or did the news just break already and they didn't have to do anything? Like, did they make a formal statement saying that Jonathan Streeter's apology was not from them?
I don't remember. I think I'm just going on my memory here. I think that the church
What'd you say?
I just said using his name. I was just making a joke.
Came out and said, "Oh, we didn't do that." I mean, which is not a good thing either, right? Oh, we would never apologize.
I was going to say, I feel like I remember seeing.
Do you see like how many, like through their exasperation, they're explaining the joke?
Yeah.
They're
I know. I just
they're explaining that it pointed the big old dangling thing that they haven't done it yet. It's pointing to the thing of like making them go, "Oh, we wouldn't say that." It's you're pointing out the troll exasperatedly. Yeah.
Also, I just had the thought. I realized because John DeLynn famously is in the business of producing trauma porn, and John DeLynn as the director of trauma porn, for him, like this is I just
The
had
secretary.
This feeling.
He's the secretary of trauma porn.
No, but I just realized that in regular porn and trauma porn, the money shot is when someone's bodily fluids are dripping down a woman's face. For John, that's the money shot. He's waiting for that girl to cry. He needs those tears.
I disavow.
He needs those tears because that's the money shot. He knows that's where the donations are coming. When some girl cries and he's just hoping to get, come on, cry, cry for me, bitch.
Oh God.
I think something on Mormon Newsroom that was like the church saying, "No, that wasn't our apology. We didn't make that," or something like that.
So when the church went on record saying that's not us, that's when Slate got involved, and that's when the Latter-day Saints, for whom I quote in my book, when they went on social media, one woman was crying. I mean, it's just very moving.
Money shot.
Dramatic was I was watching her cry as she's posting a message about how wrong that prank was.
Except that's the wrong person.
And-
Like John Delino He's the one who's supposed to be getting that money shot, right? He's the secretary of trauma porn.
So, but all of that occurred after the church had denied that they wrote the apology.
Like they had a chance, they had another chance to right wrongs and say, hey, this wasn't us apologizing, but we are sorry. Like they kind of skipped that.
No,
I mean, that's the church isn't going to.
They know that this is a trap. There's no graceful way for them out of this. You guys know it, because you know that if the church actually did give the formal apology, you guys would never let it go. You wouldn't take it as an apology. You would take it as an admission of guilt, and you would use it as fuel for the rest of your fucking lives to grind your fucking axe. Even though the church has done every fucking thing in practice to make up for that. It's not a racist church. They disavow racism. They can't get away from their past, and they'd love to, but you won't fucking let them.
Yeah, that brings up another thing, because I commented to Bill Real this week because he's on Thoughtful Faith. I think it's like right here, the same thing, where he's saying these guys on, what's that channel called? I forget what that one's called, but
well, it was I don't remember. That guy was on the Three Mormons with Kwaku for a while, but he's got his own channel now.
yeah. So they're talking about change, and they might be changing. And Bill Real is there to say, does everybody realize that they essentially admit that if they're changing, that their truths aren't truths all along, and all that sorts of stuff. And so I commented on the bottom of it saying, like, what if you guys are like there standing at the goalpost every single time to say, you said you'd never change, when you're also the one ostensibly saying that you're the one who wants the change for humanitarian reasons, but you're there to shit on them and tease them whenever they do change. That kind of plays into what they're about to say here about how Jonathan made it harder for the actual apology to come out. Well, but you guys who are there to shit on them the second that a real one comes out, it makes it just as hard too. It's all speed bumps.
Apologize in response to a fake apology. They're just so I think part of why people were so angry at Jonathan might have been that he didn't think this through. My guess is it was a prank, but it was a prank that was trying to provide social commentary. But probably
you guys are doing it. All these years later, 6 years later, it's still providing it.
Probably the way he didn't fully think it through is that certainly if an apology was ever going to be forthcoming, this was going to delay it or make it less likely, if not possibly kill the chance of
We
it.
got to say, as we're making fun of money shots, I think Jonathan Streeter as well did feel very bad that some people took it so hard. He thought maybe some of those same people who took it so hard might have thought that it was good commentary itself or useful commentary itself.
If that was true, then why would he have been labeled an insensitive prankster?
I agree that 100%. The church doesn't work that way. I think that the way that the church would work, if they were to apologize, they would have done it in the Race and the Priesthood essay. When they never want to give the chance or the opportunity to think that, X happened, Y immediately followed. Even with the Randy Bott thing, they had the Race and Priesthood essay already done. And so they waited a while before they released it. There's no question the Bott thing hastened the release. But even then, it was still a little bit of a gap. It wasn't like it was released the following week, because that would have been seen as a direct response to what happened with Randy Bott in 2012. And so the prime opportunity would have been in the Race and Priesthood essay to acknowledge the pain this has caused, to apologize for it, and then it becomes a standalone document on the church's webpage. But I'm still hopeful, for whatever it's worth, I'm still hopeful that the church might apologize for the ban one day. It's not inconceivable to me. I mean, President Oaks, we've heard what he's had to say, but that doesn't mean that the rest of his colleagues feel the same way.
Well, and you pointed out Mountain Meadows happened like 150 years ago, and it took them, a while before they said anything. So maybe it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I should note that there's a 2018, May 23rd, 2018 Trib article that says creator of Fake LDS Apology does his own apologizing, acknowledges causing tremendous pain for Black Mormons. And the quote from Streeter is, "I caused tremendous pain for Black Mormons who have patiently waited for so long. I am deeply sorry." So that's good. That Jonathan apologized.
And he was on, I think, Mormon Discussion or Mormonism Live a couple of weeks ago, or just really shortly ago. I haven't seen the episode, but I think he does say similar things in that one as well.
Yeah. All right.
Matt Harris is unimpressed. Look at that unimpressed face. He's scholar. That's scholarly unimpressed. That's unimpressed scholarly. Here's Jonathan commenting on it. He says, Harris has made several statements about the satire apology here, and in his book that demonstrate he only superficially surveyed public opinions about it and didn't get the chance to approach it from a more in-depth academic perception. What? You're questioning how academic he's being? This is a scholar. Like he's got, look at the books. Do you see look at how many books? Can somebody count the books back there? There's at least 4 or more books behind him. Like that's a scholar. To start with, Darren Smith himself played a role in previewing and participating in the apology. Whoops, he ran it by a black guy and it was kind of done in conjunction with another black person. I can't fault him because it is just a small part of a large complex story that he otherwise tells with a tremendous skill. Bill Reel and RFM did a more in-depth job of exploring the issue here, and just links to his episode where he talks about all of it and that he did feel bad that some people took it as hard as they did. But that thing was 3/4 BIPOC people, 3/4 BIPOC, a black guy and a half Mexican, 3/4 BIPOC got that troll. I think that's about it on that subject, though. Let's see here.
So, Matt, if it's okay, since we talked about black potential leaders in the church, this is something that, Matt, I don't think you're expecting.
Yeah, I think they move on from it there. So it was something called the what are they
argument to that was, well, you have all these other wards that are specialized, and I guess I didn't realize at the time that they were in the
Oh, is that what you're talking about?
time. And then I came back in 2021, and I remember looking up the ward that was closest to us. I remember seeing there was a Tagalog ward. There was, and this is, I was living in an area where the concentration of LDS people was pretty high.
Tagalog is a language.
I remember there was a Tagalog ward, there was a Native American ward, there was a Korean ward, there were multiple Polynesian wards, there was a Spanish ward. And I remember thinking, okay, if we can have a ward specifically for these, very small subsets within LDS culture, then we should be able to have one for Black Americans, because there's a decent number of us at BYU. There's at least enough to establish one ward, and if you add UVU into that, then you got the University of Utah, then you've got all of these transracial adoptees within the Salt Lake Valley. There should absolutely be enough of us. And I put out a survey. I had hundreds of people respond to that survey. I'm talking about their activity rates in the church, how they didn't participate as often in their regular wards, but they said that they would absolutely participate in a ward that was predominantly Black. And there were adults who had Black children that they had adopted who were willing to drive dozens of miles to attend a ward like that. And I took all this data. I went and met with a few different stake presidents to try and find someone who would be willing to do that. I did find a stake president who was willing to help me get that process started. They reached the area authorities, and it was immediately shut down. They said that it would be divisive.
Hold on a second. Are you telling me that the racist white supremacist church wouldn't let you racially segregate? That's fucked up.
They said that racial segregation was divisive?
Racist.
This is how we know that the brethren never went to college. That they'd say something so stupid as to believe that dividing people by skin color might be divisive.
Wait a minute.
You got to get some of that scholarly racism.
Hold on. Maybe this all took place over the phone, and over the phone they thought he was a white guy. And if he would have just said, no, you don't understand, we're Black, they would have been like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Well, that's different.
You're the right kind of supremacist.
We understand how Black people are different.
In October of 2022 is two pretty, I don't know, would you say groundbreaking statements from Mormon Church Prophet President Russell M. Nelson and Dallin H. Oaks. Do you want to set these up or just play them real quick, Matt?
Yeah, go ahead and play them and then I'll comment.
Okay, so here's Russell M. Nelson in the talk Let God Prevail, October 2020.
I grieve that our Black brothers and sisters during the world over are enduring the pains of racism and prejudice. Today, I call upon our members everywhere to lead out in abandoning attitudes and actions of prejudice. I plead with you to promote respect for all of God's children.
Okay, so that is Russell M. Nelson. And then also, same general conference, our dear friend Dallin H. Oaks in a talk oddly called Love Your Enemies, which I don't love the title of that talk if you're going to be talking about racism, because you don't want to frame Black people as enemies, maybe. And I don't know if that's what he did, but anyway, that association seemed odd to me. But here's what he said in that talk, same conference.
As citizens and as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we must do better to help root out racism. At the other extreme, a minority of participants and supporters of these protests and the illegal acts that followed them seem to have forgotten that the protests protected by the Constitution are peaceful protests. Protesters have no right to destroy, deface, or steal property, or to undermine the government's legitimate police powers. The Constitution and laws contain no invitation to revolution or anarchy.
Based, Oaks. Based.
Really quick, before Matt, we have you comment. Nate,
Well, isn't that the same thing? No.
I'm sure you watched or heard about those two statements during that very volatile year. Are there any reflections you want to share about that?
Yeah, I used the term root out racism for years as a way to try and encourage change. I did it when talking to President Worthen about things that were going on at BYU. I did it with the Brad Wilcox situation, and so that was definitely like kind of like one of the final rallying cries for me when I was trying to to work on racism within the church. As far as Elder Oaks' comments, I think it was interesting that they chose him to be the one to kind of speak on those things. It was the same lineup from the B1 celebration, if you will. But again, he chose to focus on things that I don't think really needed to be focused on. They show a picture of some protesters burning up, a car, and he talked about we don't need anarchy and things like that. First off, I don't
references to Antifa allegations, or white people rioting. Is that what he was trying to address there? Or?
I'm not sure.
Black people.
I don't know what they're referring to at all. I don't
Was he talking about the fiery but mostly peaceful protest? Was he talking about entire cities burning down and government buildings being taken over by revolutionaries? Was that what
Was he talking about Kamala Harris raising bail money for Jacob Blake?
What?
But I don't think that anyone in the church was participating in those things. I don't think there were many LDS members out there burning up cars and things like that. I think it would have made a lot more sense to focus on the peaceful protests, because I think 95% of the protests were peaceful.
Okay, MSNBC.
93% peaceful. Like I said, I've got a couple go-to jokes for that one, and mine is.
Yeah, he rounded up 2%. It's 93.
When they say 93,
like that's a real number.
My parents' marriage was 93% peaceful. World War II was 93% peaceful. You fucking jackass.
The negative aspects of that, and not to mention that all the people who were rioting and things like that were not. I don't remember seeing any of them being like people of African descent. The majority of those protests.
They were wearing masks.
I'd love to do like a skit if I had. If I had a lot of money, it'd be funny to do a skit where it's like an Auschwitz guard being like, "Yeah, we get a bad rap because it's like, yeah, I know it does the whole genocide thing, but really, you don't pay attention to the day-to-day things that we're doing. We're only gassing Jews like 4 to 8% of the time. Other than that, we're cleaning bathrooms just like honest, hardworking Aryan people.
We play foosball. We drink beer.
Yeah,
that we force the Jews to make for us."
And I know we all get our own sets of facts nowadays. And I'll even back you up, because a bunch of them were dumb little white kids, that's for sure.
That's damn true.
But sorry, there was plenty of African Americans.
In fact, I bet if we were to go proportionally, like by population, I bet you that blacks were overrepresented in Black Lives Matter.
Did you just use a per capita racism? You just used the per capita racism.
Oh, damn it,
People peacefully protesting, exercising their constitutional rights to do that. And so I think it would have made more sense to focus on that rather than referencing anarchy, referencing those kinds of things. And I think it just was kind of like again, one of those subtle digs that he likes to throw in there, and also kind of like to the maybe some far right people who had negative views of those protests. Another one of those like underhanded things. And I could just be speculating here.
Only far right people.
Yeah, do you think it was just far right people?
I don't think that the Punjabi owners of the 7-Eleven that had tens of thousands of dollars of damage done and products stolen, and the Doritos and beer and Pringles are not covered by insurance. They just lost that.
The TVs are, though, and the TVs are for survival.
They don't have money to feed their families. That's why they need to raid an Adidas.
But given his track record for just kind of putting in those subtle digs and including things that don't really need to be included, that's definitely what it felt like to me at the time.
Matt, your thoughts?
As long as you
my
ignore what
goodness.
happened.
Nate, you nailed it. There's a mixed message here. On the one hand,
Nate, that was very insightful, Nate. I appreciate you being here on the panel so much. Here.
Yeah, what was he gonna do? Dylan's like, hey, do you want to refute anything that our black panelists said? No. Everything he said was actually, I wasn't paying attention, but it was perfect. I know it by definition of a black man saying it.
President Oaks is.
I think it's so goofy. I mean, before I even watched this, I just posted to you guys like the screenshot of it, that anytime they talk about black stuff, they got to get a token black on the panel. Like, you got to make sure the black person's there so you can talk about this.
It's surprising to me that he can only ever get one.
Is implying that the vast majority of protests were not lawful. They were destructive. And this is, of course,
That's
Antifa and groups like that. When Nate said it beautifully, the vast majority of the protests are peaceful, law-abiding. I remember in my community, just a quick story, when my kids and I
what do you
went
do when
to
your
march
kids
in our
do something
community for
shitty?
Black Lives Matter, and I loved it because there were...
When they what?
Like, when your kids do something shitty, when I tell my kid, hey, look, you've been, like, taking the dog's poop and mushing it against the wall. You need to stop that. Well, you're going to be like, Dad, I feel like you're only addressing the bad things that I did. And the rest of the day, I don't know if you remember, but the rest of the day, I was not smearing poop on the walls. We're like, you know what? You're right. I should talk about those things. Keep smearing shit on the wall, and I'm going to talk about how great you are while you're not doing that.
Well, there's also the whole thing is like, only a minority of people were actually doing the horrible stuff. Like, that's not the point, right?
That's also who he's talking
only
to.
a fraction of a percent of Nazis actually engaged in the murder. The vast majority of Nazis just kept their homes and went to school and drove their trucks and whatever their job was. But what they did is they held and endorsed certain ideas and were evil. And that's what makes it wrong. Just because you didn't actually throw a firebomb in the cop car, if you are there supporting the people throwing the firebomb on the cop car and you agree with their conspiracy theory, yes, you're part of the problem. And yes, we get to say that was wrong. You don't get a pass.
And 7% is like shockingly high, even though that number,
Yes.
like, where the heck do you get that number from?
Even
But-
if they've made that up, but even that is like, yes, if 7% of tens of thousands of rioters are violent, that's a lot of violence.
in cities all over the country.
100 consecutive nights.
During a time where they're ostensibly supposed to be in their house because they're going to
because of COVID.
disease, But it was like 120 nights straight that they were raiding that courthouse in Portland or whatever. And I remember during that there was some like Twitter propagandistic thing that all these women came out and said, we are moms of the something. And they all came out in like these yellow visors or something and came and stood like, we're here to protect the protesters, moms from the protesters. And then later that night you saw a bunch of people in yellow stuff attacking, like in their yellow construction outfits that were supposedly those mother things, attacking the courthouse just the same as anybody else. And I remember I got in like another one of those Facebook threads is saying these guys weren't peaceful either. They ended up getting involved too. Look, here they are. There they are in those construction outfits throwing Molotov cocktails at the freaking courthouse.
Black people there were brown people, there were white people. And when I was marching with my kids, the person marching with us behind me.
And did Oaks ever say it's just black people?
Were two police officers with a sign. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that everybody is like my community where the cops were marching with us in solidarity. I realize that's not the case. But what is the case is that most of these protests were like the ones that I experienced in terms of it being peaceful. And yet Elder Oaks gave the mistaken and tragic impression that a lot of these protests were destructive. And the reason why he did that, I'm certain.
So did endless amounts of video that weren't being shown on the Boomer Truth Regime corporate channels.
Is because there is a large...
I remember that time that like they talk about like two different sets of facts. Like there was a difference in the universe for people who were getting their news from Twitter. Well, I mean, this has just been true for 8 years now. But people who get their news and find out stuff from people who are on the ground and stuff, it was largely following Andy No. Oh, can't say Andy No, you'll get kicked out of a band or something like that if you mention Andy No. Who was that? What band was that? That dude got kicked out of. The
Mumford
banjo
and
player.
Sons.
Yeah, for saying that he liked Andy No, and I have Andy No's book up there. But I was following Andy No, who was filming the different things people were doing and putting up films every night that were out there, and that stuff was spreading all over Twitter, and none of it was being shown on MSNBC, and it was nightly.
Contingent of Latter-day Saints in the church who have some very far-right opinions that they glean from talk radio and right-wing news.
And it got to a point that if you showed anybody Andy No stuff, they said, Andy No. You're showing Andy No. Andy No.
What the hell does far right mean to this guy? I mean, it doesn't mean anything to anyone really, but he's talking about some really far right views, and what he's referencing is a talk where Dallin H. Oaks says, "Hey, you guys that are burning down buildings, don't do that. You're not supposed to."
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, behold the far right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus, man.
But then everybody started saying Andy No is far right and all stuff. This gay, I think he's Vietnamese or Korean, like a reporter who they attacked multiple times whenever they catch him filming stuff.
And so forth, who are being taught that most of this is destructive and that it's black people doing it.
No.
And Elder Oaks knew that when you deal with things like
He didn't
race,
say that.
particularly as it derives from a political culture,
And nobody
he knows
believed
that there's people in the church who'll be offended by it. So he threw him a bone. I hate to say that, but that's what was going on here. And it's tragic. It bothered me when I saw this address and I saw the pictures that you just showed.
More of that scholarly bother.
Mr. Blackman, sir, I swear to God, this really bothered me.
This is scholarly upset.
On fire, brick through a window. Yeah, that happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but that was not the norm. And he presented it as though it were. And he was pandering to an audience, unfortunately, of right-wing Latter-day Saints. And then in the next breath, then he talked about racism. And one of the things that I point out in this book.
Do you know that Do you know that Ted Bundy was like an avid crocheter?
Really?
Yeah, he's like really, really good at crocheting.
Like 97% of the time.
But you never hear about that. They never talk about that in any of his documentaries. They just talk about the 2% of his time that he spent raping and slaughtering women.
He probably has way more scarves than murdered bodies.
You know,
I made that up though. He didn't.
Oh.
I don't know anything about that.
No, like I don't know. We can just keep going with it because, like, everybody, Ted Bundy's, all of his friends knew that he made the best schnitzel. Like he got the just right, perfect seasoning. Like, but no, nobody talks about this schnitzels.
You disinformationers.
Oh, you never talk about my schnitzels. All you're talking about is the women that I murdered. This is.
You two disinformationers, like somewhere like a year from now, I'm going to regurgitate to somebody like, did you know that Ted Bundy was like he had schnitzels and he liked schnitzels and scarves? And they're gonna be like, what? Like, yeah, look it up, man. Look it up.
Yeah, it's on the internet.
The church still has some issues.
Then refer them back to this podcast. Oh, wait a minute. That's how what did Nancy Pelosi call that? Like a wraparound smear? She admitted to doing that. Like you see the thing, then you reference yourself to saying that it's on the internet. Somebody said it on the internet, and it's you who said it to the New York Times or something like that. She calls that a wraparound smear.
Logical racism. That's true. But the church also has huge issues with political racism, where people use race as a cudgel to divide Americans. Now, I want to just pause for a moment.
People use race as a cudgel to divide Americans.
What?
You are employed in that, sir.
You are on a panel with a guy called Black Menace who created an entire internet personality over creating racial division. Jesus.
General conference addresses. President Oaks went to BYU a week or two later and gave essentially a very similar address. And I remember watching the address, and I don't think we have a screenshot of it, but when it was on KBYU TV, during the address, somebody, whoever ran the TV station, I'm sure it wasn't President Oaks, but they put Black Lives Matter as a banner when President Oaks was talking. And I was thrilled at that because those are the words that President Oaks had carefully avoided a week or two before when he gave his general conference address. So he's sensitive to audiences. He's trying to say the right things, to address racism. And I don't think that they're insincere. I want to be clear on that. I think he's very sincere that racism is a problem. It needs to be dealt with. But also he said the wrong thing when he implied that these protesters, these Black Lives Matter protesters, are destructive of property. And that's just simply not the case. Most of them, as Nate said, and as I concur, have been peaceful. And that needs to really be acknowledged. And President Oaks didn't acknowledge that because I think he's pandering to a certain constituency in the church.
I do want to point out, he did say at the beginning of that, he did say that it was a minority. But the problem with that is that people are going to.
Was that referring to BIPOCs?
No, he did
$2 billion was the estimate of the property damage, was $2 billion. And that's lowballing.
Yeah, not to mention like all the different flight out of the inner cities that happened from that.
I think most people like just have such a misunderstanding of what a business is. Like they think that the business owner has to be rich or something, but some dude like running a pawn shop in Kenosha that got it burnt down. Now he's just fucked now. All the cash he put into that. Oh, it's got insurance. Yeah, no, dude. And even if he did have insurance, even if it covered absolutely everything, you burned down his shit. That's fucked. And I love, that's my first thought when that guy was saying, he's like, he should have pointed out that it was a minority. I was like, wait, he did.
The FBI and ATF tracked 164 structure fires from arson that occurred between May 27th and May 30th, 2020, during the George Floyd protests in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Just one city in 3 days, 164 acts of arson.
And Tim Walz's wife said she sat there and listened to that out the window and
music
breathed in the tires burning.
Yeah, oh yeah, she's like, oh, that's the smell of revolution, isn't it great? God damn.
Not for the people who own the fucking tires, you rich bitch.
Yeah. Let me come back to that. Let me show you what Pelosi said about that. Listen to this.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and if they see it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the.
You say the smear, the press reports on it, then you refer to the press reporting on it.
What in the world? What was this? What's the context of this? Why is she saying that? She's like in a press conference and she's like, this is how you be a manipulative cunt.
Yeah.
Just
But
so you guys
people
know.
knew they'd been doing that all along. Like throughout all of Trump's presidency, which I'm sure will happen again, you'd have those constant anonymous things that Trump said this. And then it was reported like, who said that? The New York Times said that. The New York Times said it from who? And it's just, well, it's an anonymous person, so it's reported. It's reported. It is reported.
Problem with that is that people are going to hear what they want to hear. And I think he understands that being
Like
a lawyer.
you guys
he
heard what you wanted to hear out of that quote.
did point out, yes, it was a minority of people, but then he went on to show that image, which of course a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And then at the end of that statement, he concluded it.
Were there 1,000 people in the
saying
picture?
legitimate police presence, right? He forcefully says they are legitimate. So almost like, again, kind of throwing a bone to those people who want to support the police. So just
the people who wanted to support the police during the riots.
The whole way that he phrased that statement, with recency bias, the last thing you hear is going to be the thing that you remember the most. And then also, I was basically at that. But yeah, so he did say that, but the way that he phrased everything and the picture that he showed, it definitely put emphasis on what he wanted to be remembered.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. That's a great addition. It for me is this.
That's an excellent perspective.
It was pretty fucking. It was pretty fucking carefully worded. It was actually a pretty decent statement where he's like, "Look, we understand protests, but a small amount of these protests are getting out of hand. You can do your protesting, but don't burn down people's property. That's wrong." And then they're like,
Thank you, Jared. Jared, you're an excellent addition to this podcast, and everything you say is
while I
Venmo in the bio.
While it was all going on, and still to this day, every time I bring up America is possibly the easiest place in the world to legally demonstrate. And I don't know how many people just scoff, the like the whole thing is like when I'm just like, why do they have to illegally demonstrate? They can demonstrate legally. Like those Charlottesville Nazis, they got their permits, they fucking walked with their dumb tiki torches in the assigned area, They got their message out. Everybody pointed and laughed. Like this. Sorry, in the version it should have gone, anybody who was there to see it should have pointed and laughed or done nothing, and then that would have been that, you know. But instead, a bunch of left-wing agitators showed up trying to pick a fight. They got their wish, and somehow the Charlottesville people got blamed for it. It's like completely ass backward. Like that's one of the big gaslights ever. Is that the Charlottesville thing is that the violence was done by because of the fucking white supremacists in their polo shirts. Like, no, if all we had done was ignore them, nothing would have happened. But the only reason we know that was even news was because hundreds and hundreds of organized Antifa doinks showed up with masks and weapons to fight. That's why that became news.
Scholar and a teacher of this topic in race and civil rights. It invoked law.
Just a scholar, not a preacher, just a scholar.
Order to me. And law and order, when a politician says, you know, we're going to have law and order, these are buzzwords. These are racist dog whistles from the 1960s. And Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon and other politicians from that.
Favorite is close. That was the money shot I was getting to.
I was talking to the liberal guy at work the other day, and he said something crazy and something ironic, and I was like, well, and he informed me that that's a racist or anti-Semitic dog whistle, and I was like, shut up, it's a phrase.
Yeah.
Like how many countries in the world that are not white, like that the Bekele guy in El Salvador, is that a racist dog whistle when he said, I'm gonna put all the fucking MS-13 and what are the other guys, the Barrio 18 guys, into a mega prison? Oh, that was a white supremacist dog whistle from the 60s, you fucking jackass.
Well, how many useful concepts can the racists just co-opt to where we can't have them? Because like law and order is a useful concept, but now the racists have said it, so we have to hate it.
No. Color blindness is a racist dog whistle. Lowering taxes is a racist dog whistle.
He said something that seemed to support the police.
That's a racist dog whistle.
I want to get the racists to say like something, because they did a good job with the "it's okay to be white" thing. That was fucking hilarious. I want them to say like get volunteer at a soup kitchen. Get that to be a racist dog whistle.
You can do it. I mean, they got milk. They got the peace sign. They got the circle game. The circle game was one. And man, that circle game thing went away. Like that was big for like a couple years. That the circle game was white.
People lost their there was that guy. What's it called? The fifth branch of the military. Oh, there's 6 branches of the military now. The Coast Guard. That Coast Guard guy lost his fucking Coast Guard career.
Yeah,
because of the circle game.
And it's so funny because I think I showed it on here a while back, but I was watching Malcolm in the Middle, and one of their intros to their show was those boys playing the circle game with each other and punching each other from playing the circle game. But no, it didn't exist. The circle game was white supremacy.
That was one of those things. I mean, Chris and I both lived through it, where we were talking no, that's the circle game. They're like, that's actually Russian disinformation. That was never a thing. Like, motherfucker, I was alive in 1992.
We were never at war with East Asia.
I've got a lot of arm bruises from that era.
Absolutely. On the bus, like there was the jocks in the back. That's all they were doing was slugging each other, playing the circle game.
It's. I don't think I can even show it. I swear I showed it on here once, but Malcolm in the Middle has a circle game for one of their intros. You know how they do those little intros before the
era. We're always talking about law and order, emphasizing law and order as a way to conquer the Black Americans in the 1960s who were protesting racial injustices. So these politicians were less concerned about what the protests were about and more concerned about law and order. And sad to say that they were playing off the cultural prejudices of the time, and a lot of Americans bought into that, and they got them elected. But these are racist dog whistles. And so I'm not saying President Oaks was doing that intentionally, because I don't think it was a racist dog whistle he was sending out. I'm just saying that when you talk about law and order, for a lot of people who follow these kinds of things, that's what it.
You guys just said that for 10 minutes that it was a dog whistle. That guy said that was like a to the right wing of his.
How do you talk about obeying the law without it being a racist dog whistle then? Like, do you have to just phrase it differently? You just got to be like, we don't want to transgress any rules of the government.
Yeah. I think he said yeah, he got to saying this here like later.
People the right to vote, thinking that's okay, or brown people too, thinking that's okay. All lives matter when being confronted with the Black Lives Matter statements, and so not realizing how offensive that is when it's all lives matter.
Theory,
when really what's going
Black
on.
Lives Matter demonstrably false conspiracy theory. Yes, it is okay to say all lives matter in the face of a big fat fucking lie.
Yeah, and something that turned out to be a complete grift that was just getting random grifters millions of dollars to spend on mansions that a lot of us knew from all the way back in the riots of what were the ones of like 2014 or 12?
Brown.
Yeah, the Brown riots.
Ferguson,
the Ferguson riots, that a bunch of people had already said from that time frame that they knew Black Lives Matter was a scam, that I learned from black people.
Michael Brown's parents. The first time I heard that Black Lives Matter stole all the money was out of the mouths of Michael Brown's mom and dad.
Before the Summer of Love ever started, I already knew that the Black Lives Matter organization had stolen money. So when I was going around, I never dropped the All Lives Matter thing. I didn't even think it was like that useful thing. But I would go and tell people that Black Lives organization is a scam. They're scammers. They've been scamming people for a long time, and everybody's been telling people this for a while. And all these different people are like just donating and showing all this stuff to it. Like, oh my gosh.
How much corporate money? Like
a lot.
Gajillions and gajillions of dollars. And that thing is like, and so that all gets built into the prices of the services they charge for now, because they fucking paid out on that shit. And then and the best part was with the Patrice Cullors, and one of the mansions she bought was the former Communist Party headquarters of Canada. Of course. Of course.
We are trained Marxists.
Matt Walsh just brought it up with that lady today who was complaining about the DEI stuff getting wiped out, or them talking about wiping out the DEI stuff. She said, she repeated a thing about companies that support DEI do better than other companies. We have the data for it. And Matt Walsh pointed out that was like a backward study, that it just showed that rich companies supported DEI that were already rich. And so then they said, look, obviously the people who spend this money gained money from it. Like, no, people with too much money to spare dumped money into it to genuflect against your bullcrap.
And also, also part of it is absolutely certainly a little bit of a bribe of like, please don't throw a Molotov cocktail through. Don't throw a Molotov cocktail.
It was lamb's blood. It was lamb's blood on the roof of the. It was lamb's blood on the doorway.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's what it was. And they'd put those stuff in there. I mean, think of all those people would put those like signs in their store windows because they didn't want people to ransack them.
You remember that? I think it was like a dorm or something, or apartment, where they're like cheering them on. They're like, "Yeah, go guys!" And they throw a fucking chair through the window. Dude, we're on your side. We're on your side. Just wrecking their shit. And a racist was born that day.
On here is it's young black men at the time in 2020
the thing about this, I mean, I know, like, I go over TikTok, and just like the John Oliver thing, there's people who haven't given up on getting the trans people in the sports. But this Kendyism that we need to segregate to save racism, and still like talking about the Summer of Love as if it wasn't just like some giant embarrassment. It just seems so antiquated. It seems like you guys are so not with the times. It like these guys always like complain about how like the Mormon church is always behind the times. And it's like these guys talking about this Kendyism like it's current is like, you guys missed the boat on this. Like, it's already moving on.
Also, if nobody's ever heard Kendi speak, like, it just takes a moment to realize he's dumb.
Yeah. And his wasn't exactly the same guys as Black Lives Matter, but he had his whole department at what university was it? And it turned out, what was it?
It wasn't MIT. It was Boston University.
Boston, yeah. And he blew all the money.
Yeah, no, like 4 years, like 4 years and $60 million later, they're like, okay, show us your research.
He hadn't done anything.
And he hadn't done anything.
He blew it all entirely, and they moved him out, and there was a bunch of complaints that he'd fired a bunch of black people and all this sorts of stuff. Yeah.
George Floyd. But it's not just George Floyd. It was leading to this.
Oh, and I learned all that about what happened with Kennedy and his stuff from two black guys, John McWhorter and Glenn Lowry. So, except I'm using them as tokens. I use tokens. You guys don't use tokens.
That it's young black men who were being targeted by police officers for brutal treatment. And so when you say all lives matter, what that really is doing is showing a callous indifference to police brutality and to the lives of these black men who were targets. Or Nate, as you said, with Colin Kaepernick.
No,
black men are not being targeted by police. That is a lie. That is a Nazi-level racist conspiracy theory, and it is a propagandistic lie designed explicitly to increase racial tension. And I have good news for you, Professor Dickface. It's not real. I have wonderful news. Black people are not being targeted by police.
Will Riley has pointed this out, and not only that, he's made academic scholarly papers that shows almost all of these things had detrimental effects. They had negative outcomes for what they ostensibly were claiming they wanted to help.
Roland Fryer, a black man who grew up poor with a single mom, who researched this topic, has done lots of research at Harvard and has shown good news. The police are not systemically racist. That doesn't mean to say that there's not plenty of room for police reform. Like, because that's things I can already hear, like, imagining if this, guy was actually listening to me. I know that immediately come back, so you're just okay with police doing anything. No, I'm very, very concerned about shitty police, which is why I watch all the body cam footage that comes out every fucking day. And I'm relieved that it's mostly wonderful. But, like, for example, that cop that threw that 80-year-old Chinese guy on the ground and caused a brain bleed, like, that guy was like, you watch the video, like, Chinese guys just being so fucking dense. Like, I mean, there's a language problem, but you kind of feel like the guy's just kind of playing it. But when the cop goes all that far, like, okay, that was obviously retarded. That's a problem. But it happens to white people too, all this shit. Anyway, but the whole point being, like, you can look into this using the same FBI stats that Black Lives Matter cherry pick through to discover, no, black men are not being targeted by police. Criminals are being targeted by police, but that's the fucking job.
And as many bad things that happen to black people, just as many, if not more, maybe not by per capita, happen to people of all the colors. The unarmed shootings happen to the white people, all that stuff. But Flip, being empathetic as he is, empathy, he realizes that the police are part of the equation and humans too. The people who are running to those situations and facing people. You just sent us one earlier today where somebody was attacking somebody with a knife.
No, like, because that's one thing when they would say, like, why'd they have to shoot him? He just had a knife. Like, I mean, I don't know if I.
Well, we saw the one just like a month ago where that black basketball player, gal, stabbed that dude in the face. And like, you see how fast that.
Those cops are lucky to live. There's another video that's on YouTube where, like, a cop is called out because, like, some guy's, like, I think it's a junkyard, and the owner of the junkyard says there's a homeless guy on my property. Can you please come deal with him? And, like, I mean, you watch the video and it's terrifying because it takes less than a second. The cop just walks up, hey, buddy, what's going on? And he's stabbed in the neck, and you see on the body cam, you see the blood gushing, and you hear the man die. And it takes, and, like, they start with a good, like, 20 feet of separation. And that's all it takes, But these people are so dumb, like, they don't understand that cops deal with real danger all the fucking time. I mean, that's just, there's so many things that they get wrong about this. Because, like, part of the problem we're dealing with here is, like, there's these layers of things. Because, like, they believe that cops are evil. And then also at the same time, they believe that even if criminals are committing crimes, it's actually society that did that. It's not people making choices. No one has agency. Like, if somebody, wants to go around and stab people randomly on the street, society made that happen. That's literally the leftist line. So, like, it's one of those heads I win, tails you lose things. Like, the cops are assholes and criminals are the cops' fault too. Basically,
this is it. Is like when you go and evaluate your situations, you can empathize with both, the person being detained and the detainer, because that's actual empathy. You think both of these people are people in the situation. There's a place where one person could go overboard. There's a place where the other person can go overboard. But in the view and the mind of all these super empathetic, actual empathetic people, there's only one side to empathize with. You only can empathize with the supposed oppressed or something like that.
No, like
And
one
So
of the things, watching all the police. Sorry, go ahead. I'll let you go.
Well, it just makes me think of the I always talk about the dinner parties in all of my favorite novels, like in Ayn Rand books and Dostoevsky books. There's always a dinner party, and they just nail the out of touch sort of rich person thing. And I can't remember which Dostoevsky book it was. It was either Brothers Karamazov or The Idiot, where they go to the rich dinner party, and there's the rich intellectual who all of the other parasites are sort of glomming onto to prove that they are also smart and they understand his nonsense that he's spewing out. And it's shit that you still hear today. So it's like none of this is new. It's kind of interesting that one of them, they're talking about how crime is only due to oppression. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, that's what? Oh, like I'm stupid to have thought that this is something new. No, this has been here a long time. This idea that, well, they can't help it. It's the system that's brought them up like this. Quiet. Give me more champagne.
And then the exact same people also say that all billionaires are necessarily criminals. Like,
by the way, there's a little bit off.
Cause them to commit crimes.
It's a little bit off topic, but the side that's deriding billionaires probably has the most billionaires donating to them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well,
That's demonstrable. You know?
But I was gonna say, like, watching all the police body cam shit that I do, I'm genuinely amazed at how kind and compassionate police are by and large. Like sometimes, like
got
when you see
sliced by that woman, yeah, he waited longer than I think he should have to shoot her.
Oh, I don't even mean that. Like, I mean, even like, even once they've got the guy, in cuffs and all that shit, and they're just like, like, and they just stay calm. They're like, okay, buddy, all right, good luck, friend. Like, and like,
well, you get the ones where the guy like has a knife, charges him, and then they shoot him a bunch of times, and he's on the ground, and they're like, drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife. And there's always a bunch of comments that are like, he's down, man. He's like dying. Why are you telling him to drop the knife? And I'm like, this is your first body cam footage, isn't it? Like, you haven't seen.
This is your first day on Earth. I think you have to say that. Like, literally, like, do you not know how this works? People feign injuries. People in those situations are still trying to kill, and it does happen. Like, I mean, there's a lot of cases like that where, like, oh, they got the gun, oh, the gun's away, and they don't realize the guy had another gun. And then they put him in the back of the car. And he gets the gun. Like, this has happened. Like, that's why they have to go through their training. Like, that's the thing I always say all the time. When every stupid thing cops do that people go like, why is that? The answer is from hard lessons learned. That's why they tell the guy to drop the knife even though he's been shot 15 times. Because of all the times that the guy got shot 15 times and still managed to hurt somebody. It's rare, but it happens. They learn this stuff the hard way.
Lives of these black men who were targets. Or Nate, as you said, with Colin Kaepernick, focusing on Kaepernick. My goodness. Instead of focusing on him kneeling during the Pledge of Allegiance, why don't you ask why he's kneeling? That, to me, is the real issue. Why would he do that?
Nobody did.
There are millions of people watching. Obviously, he's trying to make a statement.
They didn't know that. They didn't understand that. They didn't get that.
No. We understood. And he's a jackass. That's the thing. We know exactly what he's kneeling for, and he's wrong.
We understood that he's also. Go ahead.
I think a lot of people don't understand why people watch football, because this. I mean, I understood it the whole time, but it occurred to me really hard during the whole Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce saga, where all these guys were like, well, you keep panning over to Taylor Swift. I'm so fucking sick of it. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. It makes them money. Yeah. And then everybody else was like, why is it bothering you that they're panning over to Taylor Swift? And I'm like, well, because they're here to watch football. Like, these guys just want to watch football and unwind. And they're like, would you go away, please?
And that's the same thing with Kaepernick. A lot of them, maybe they didn't know why they were pissed off at him, but they were pissed off because they were like, dude, I just want to watch football and not think about social problems right now. Fuck off.
Well, then Kaepernick was also an opportunist. Like, he was on his way out as a quarterback. Everybody knew he was on his way out. And he made way more money as an activist afterwards. Even when they gave him opportunities to come back to the league, he didn't want to take them because he wanted
that's
his
right. He turned
activism.
down a job. He got an offer on league minimum and he turned it down, right?
Yeah, to be a backup because he wanted to be a starter and an A-lister and all that stuff. And he was figured out as a quarterback. You could totally see, because people say like, he could have been on a team as a backup, for sure. But he, backup, like
What was it? He was good at scrambling or something?
Yeah, and it's something that always kind of happens with
He
quarterbacks,
had 6
especially
good games,
ones.
right? Like he had half.
I had like a year or two, but it happens all the time with a lot of those quarterbacks, and it usually happens with the scramblers, because what happens is they have that scrambling ability, and that's useful. But what's really useful is how many reads you can make quickly. And if you're a scrambler, you usually just make 1 read or 2 reads, and then you're scrambling. What that means is like look for a guy that you could possibly throw to. Somebody like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady is aware of 5 possible reads in a split second, and that's why they have a chess brain, and they can go forever because they know where all 5 of their guys, every single player, are going to run, and they can make each of the reads, and they can read where the defense is going to be and know where their guy is going to be and choose the right one to throw to. And Kaepernick was easy to figure out, as most of the scrambling cornerbacks are, because you just realize you have to cover their 1 read, and then they're going to scramble. And they get figured out. They get figured out every single time. They have to be able to read more. And he was read. Like people knew how to stop Kaepernick. He was stoppable, and he got stopped for a long while. But sure, he could have been a backup for a while. But who wants a very, very divisive backup on their team? Like, it's hard enough to have like a divisive champ on your team.
It was because it was the Broncos offered him a job. Like, yeah, and like I don't know, because like that. Right there, like he should have been grateful that anybody offered him a job after all that, because like you say, like who would want that on your team? Like,
yeah.
Anyway, but he made more.
Plus,
money.
he knew what he was doing.
More money pretending to want to play football than he ever.
He says like, why did this become a controversy? He wanted it to become a controversy.
That's
and
what
he wore pigs on his socks, like referring to the cops. That's pig cops on your socks isn't some little protesting. And at the same time, too, I'm somebody who says, yeah, it's fine you did. I don't give a shit if you did it. I never gave a big of a shit. Some people gave a lot more of a shit of it, but plenty of people are like, yeah, whatever. But they didn't want him on his team anymore. But he got more money the other way, making his stupid ass Netflix show. Oh my God, that show is so stupid.
Why is he doing that?
Where he denounced his white parents who raised him up as being racist.
Shitty.
Yeah, that's
that was so shitty. And he made a comic about it.
Mm-hmm.
Fucked up. God, these people.
Not. And I'm certain he knew the political risks to his career when he would do that.
Yeah, he knew it, and that's why he did it. God damn. Anyway, I don't know. There's that much more on these bonkos. It's still just candy times for them. They complained that they were going to bring the office of DEI to Brigham Young, but then they just changed it to the office of belonging only. And then they were going to have a bunch of demands for the BIPOC people of the university, but they never followed through with them. And they were really upset. And it tells a lot. It tells you a lot. It tells you so much about how they actually are. That's about it. More complaining about extremism and I'm just a scholar. And that's the story.
I'm a scholar.
Right.
Please, Mr. Black man, validate me.
That was a really good comment, Jared. I'm so glad we had you on to.
I appreciate that you're here to share that.
Cash app in
bio.
All righty. Did we do it?
We did it. We hit right at 3 hours. If you want to cut off right there, I don't know if you have any funny things to share anywhere. Or
I don't know. Normally at this point, if we start, we end up going for another 28 minutes, and I want to.
You won't go that long. I gotta show one autistic
hero of the week. Yeah.
But this autistic hero of the week is an autistic guy, and oh wait, hold on. First, I wanted to show this little thing from Pete Holmes. Hold on.
Was that the Tony Hinchcliffe when he was his roasting thing? But when he said when he was roasting Tom Brady, that's just when he said, "Gronk, you look like one of the Nazis who kept burning his hands on the ovens."
All right, here we go. Oh, is that not playing? Oh, there.
Worlds. She's kind of in two worlds. One is her private school, and one is her little league.
Got it.
The difference is in the names. When I pick her up, hey Alejo, hey Nalu, hey Wish, hey Sage.
Right.
I'm not making any of these up.
Those are real
These are the
names.
names.
Yeah.
And then we go to Little League on the same day. I'm like, let's go, Cody!
yeah.
Timmy! The most exotic name is Patch. It's a nickname for Patrick.
It is too real.
One is this,
Right.
right? And I'm like, that's kind of what's going on in the country. Is it's the Alejos and the Patch and Patrick. And if you don't, and this is the pun, Donald.
Yeah.
Oh, that is.
This is a general autistic guy. He's an autistic comedian. You might have seen him before, and all of his videos are just of him actually being autistic all over the place. You should watch them because they're really interesting.
What's his name?
Boring.
The Day Flame?
Pretty funny, spontaneous.
His name's Dax Flame.
Oh, the Dax Flame.
And I don't take things too seriously. All right. I'm about to put a whole pack of gum in my mouth. Well, now I'll have a good breath for a week.
Holy shit, this was me when I was 15.
I did this.
I did all of this.
An airplane.
That's really pretty. That was a lot of fun.
Every one of his videos are like that. He really is an autistic guy, like for real.
That's pretty good stuff.
You're just doing your subversive shit where you try to prove to us that we're autistic.
Yep.
I already knew that.
What's up? There's Harambe Boy finally. Hey, we pulled up one of your messages earlier about Jim Bennett, Harambe Boy.
Yeah.
We saw you commenting that he was wackadoodle.
Close-minded.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even get to Professor Alan Chris, the dude
man,
who predicted the election and got it
yeah,
wrong.
Christopher.
Lichtman.
Christopher was asking about that in the chat. I've been following him, and it's really funny to follow because if you like some people have went back for quite a few elections and applied his 13 keys, and there might be some bias in here, but they say that his 13 keys, they actually do predict most elections to a degree. But he's so dumb about it. Like he claimed before this that he predicted 10 out of the 10 last elections that he was involved, like that he had these 13 keys for. He got Bush versus Gore wrong, but he still claims he got it right. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's some election denialism.
Gore got the popular vote, I guess. I don't know.
No, he predicted that Gore would get popular and electoral.
80s Jared and Dog just dropped.
Oh, nice. But if you look at the 13 keys and the ones that he gave to Kamala Harris, there was like good short-term and long-term economy. Those are two different keys. He said yes on those. He said massive foreign affairs successes. He gave that a yes. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Charismatic incumbent. He gave that to Kamala.
No.
Yeah, he gave uncharismatic challenger. He gave that to Trump. Like, okay, look, you can shit on Trump. You cannot call him uncharismatic, especially after the assassination thing, man. And there was a couple more that were just insane. And people are trying to tell him, like, look, the thing for you to do is say, look, the keys are right, but I just interpreted them wrong this time. I let my bias get in front of me. So he had one of two options. He could do that, or he could do the keys are totally wrong. And he did neither of them. Instead, he said, the world is stupid.
Like the keys are reliant on a rational electorate, and we didn't have that this time because of disinformation. He basically blames Elon Musk on his keys fucking up, and it was hilarious. He had a hilarious back and forth with Cenk Uygur, where like Cenk thinks he owned him, but like Cenk is terrible at predictions too, and he called him stupid, and it was funny because on the Piers Morgan thing, Lichtman goes, I will not sit here and let you blaspheme against me. And Cenk is like, what are you, Jesus Christ? Fuck you.
Wait, really? Somebody in the chat mentioned Cenk, and I was going to ask about it. Is that
that
what
was was Christopher. He was talking about that.
Oh, man. Send me the link for that.
Yeah, everybody's analyzing it. So there's some shorter ones, but the actual Piers Morgan thing the full thing is up. So it's pretty funny to watch. I've been following this Alan Lichtman. He's going insane over this shit.
Yeah. And then he ended up quitting Twitter entirely, left Twitter and went to I forgot to we'll just end on showing Jonathan's new pictures of us and our pets. We just got one fresh off.
So, like, is he doing Siegfried and Roy?
I don't know.
That's what I feel like this is Siegfried and Roy stuff.
There's me and Jesse in the 80s.
You and Jesse in the 80s.
I got earrings on mine. I don't know why AI.
Right here. Here's mine.
Josie's on a vacation far away.
There's flipping bucket. Earrings.
I got earrings.
He had to have put Boy George in that prompt.
Red leather jacket. Man, I need to get a red leather jacket. I look pretty good with that.
Yeah. I got to get a leather jacket.
I got to get a jean jacket.
We are actually from the 80s. But...
I missed the 80s by a couple of years.
I put that up as my Facebook picture already, and I see people posting already thinking that it's real. So
yeah, no, people are asking me like, "How'd you get that picture of you and your cat?" Oh, it's man.
All right. Okay.
All righty.
Thanks for chilling, everybody.
Next time.
We'll see ya.
Hasta la pasta.